To join this week that the US is supplying another $1 billion in weaponry to Ukraine, its largest commitment so far, taking the total commitment to date to nearly $10 billion in assistance. I'm Nick Harper in Washington.
US Speaker Nancy Pelosi says she didn't know about the FBI search of former President Donald Trump's Florida home ahead of time. The Federal Bureau of Investigation raided Mr. Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort on Monday in connection to documents, some of them classified, that he allegedly brought there instead of handing over to the National Archives. Republicans have reacted with outrage. Kate Fisher reports from Washington.
House Speaker Democrat Nancy Pelosi told MSNBC's Morning Joe that she was as surprised as anyone else, but that she believes authorities must have had reason for the raid.
To have a visit like that, you need a warrant. To have a warrant, you need justification. And that says that no one is above the law, not even a president or a former president of the United States.
Meanwhile, the Republican Party is reportedly trying to leverage anger over the search to generate fundraising for candidates ahead of midterm elections in November. House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy threatened to investigate the Justice Department if the GOP takes control of the chamber. Kate Fisher, Washington.
US tennis star Serena Williams has announced her retirement. The 23-time Grand Slam champion says she'll step away from the sport after the US Open. Sarah Walton reports from New York.
The 28-year-old made her announcement in a cover story article for the September edition of Vogue magazine, saying she's evolving away from tennis towards other things that are important to her. Coached by her father alongside sister Venus, she started playing the sport when she was just 4 years old while living in Compton, California. Williams' first Grand Slam victory came at Wimbledon in 1998 when she was just 16. Her last was in Australia in 2017 when she was pregnant with her first child.
And officials in Brussels are awaiting comments on a take it or leave it compromise text aimed at reviving the Iran nuclear deal. After days of mediating indirect talks in Vienna between Tehran and Washington, the European Union said decisions must now be taken in capitals. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks, looking in more detail today at the reaction to the US drone strike that killed the Al-Qaeda leader Ayman al-Zawahiri 10 days ago while he was reading a book on the balcony of his safe house as dawn broke over Kabul. For the CIA, it was the culmination of a hunt that had endured for more than 2 decades and cost the lives of several US intelligence officers engaged in the search for the architect of the 9/11 attacks on America in September of 2001. Mark Polymeropoulos is a former CIA officer who lost close colleagues and friends in the hunt for al-Zawahiri.
General Michael Hayden, who was head of the CIA, put out on social media right after this news broke, essentially said, "Remember Coast." On December 30th, 2009, we lost 7 CIA officers to a double agent, Al-Qaeda double agent. That was part of the Zawahiri hunt. So the other day when I learned that Zawahiri was finally killed, really, again, deeply emotional. I took a moment. I'm down here in North Carolina. I had to go outside. But ultimately, I really hope this brings some closure to the families, not only of 9/11 victims and the victims of Al-Qaeda terrorism, but in particular, again, personally for me, the families of those CIA officers who were killed.
And he argues the Taliban should be held to account for al-Zawahiri's presence in the Afghan capital, saying it's a violation of the Doha Accords signed by the leaders of the new Afghan government. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
FSN is an independent source of news for TV, radio and digital networks worldwide. You can find more of our minute-by-minute updates on Twitter. Follow us there at Feature Story. And we have a wealth of audio and video stories from our global news bureaus on Facebook. You can find us there by following Feature Story News. Stay tuned for further updates right here. But for now, that's the latest Feature Story News. William Denzelo reporting.
This is the Onion Week in Review. A Colorado man reminisced Monday about a simpler time when he only masturbated to still images on the internet. 36-year-old Timothy Barchuk, who now says he requires multiple streaming hardcore videos just to get excited, willfully reflected on the days of waiting for slowly loading images of naked women to appear.
Look at this picture of Phoebe Cates. Sure, you can pull it up in 2 seconds now. Back in the old days, you'd have to wait for it to materialize on your screen pixel by pixel. It's not about her tits, which are nice, but it's about waiting for them. Nowadays, you could pull up 8 different videos of anal sex at once. Who cares?
In local news, the person who will one day become the warlord ruler of what was once Nebraska is born in an Omaha hospital. And in other news, a man and woman get drunk and blow $30,000 in one night. A lonely college student calls up his mom to talk about Harold and Kumar, and another dead body is tossed on a heap somewhere. For more, visit theonion.com/newsbeat.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live. Welcome to the program. The phones are open, and you're invited to join us. Bring up anything you want. The number here is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Here tonight, it's Ian,
Aria,
and Coney. And you can take control of the airwaves. That's kind of the point of the show. But we also bring things in that we think you might find interesting to discuss. On the way, Conan, you've got a book series review.
My all-time favorite book series of all time. I just re-listened to all 14 books.
Wow, that's a lot of books. We'll find out what that is coming up here in a little bit. Also, you've got an update, Aria, apparently on the Facebook AI situation that we were discussing last night, which may lead to a discussion about the DALL-E thing, the whole AI art that we got into last night. Conan, you've got some comments on that. I'd like to talk about that too. There's also some updates on the Trump raid. In the middle of the show, first hour last night, we got notice from, it was Bonnie, she sent a message saying, hey, Trump's house is being raided. And so that was breaking news last night as the show was going on. There wasn't a lot to say at that time beyond the fact that Trump wasn't there for it, number one, and you better believe it didn't go down the way the raid on this studio went down. If you want to see the video from the studio raid, there's surveillance camera video that I released a few weeks ago. You can go to freetalklive.com. It's, I think, still the first or second story there. As you scroll down the page, you'll find that, which involved at least one flashbang, one smoke grenade, broken windows.
It's a harrowing video.
Yeah, 2 Bearcats, men with guns, a ton of them, smashing video cameras, smashing surveillance cameras with like a club or something like that. It's a pretty wild video. And
so you're saying Trump's place that was just walked into nice and calmly?
I mean, it certainly wasn't that.
Knocked on the door.
We don't know all the details because Trump wasn't even home. So, like, you better believe it wasn't. News came out in the evening, so it wasn't happening at 6 in the morning.
Right.
In the middle of wintertime, is what they did here. But that said, it did happen. And a lot of people...
I mean, allegedly, it did happen, presumably, right? But
there's video footage of the cops outside.
Yeah, but they didn't drive a tank through his window. They didn't do
We would have heard about it, right? Trump would have said something if that happened.
They certainly did not do any of that.
The only thing he said so far is that they went into my safe.
Went into his safe.
They served him with a search warrant, and they searched the property.
And he says they did break into the safe. Because, again, he wasn't there to put the code in.
Right.
So they must have broken into that. Purportedly, they're looking for some sort of papers. Allegedly, they took 10 boxes of
to prove that he was holding back and that he didn't release all information regarding whatever the January 6th riots or whatnot to get him to not be able to run for president again.
Well, that's the thing.
I think there's some clause out there that says that if you were to do this, it would prevent you from running.
I think to qualify for running for president, you only have to be an American citizen and 35 years old. I don't think there's any additional requirements.
No. If you
you can be a felon.
If you break the law, though.
There's no prohibition on it in the Constitution, at least, from what we looked into. We did briefly look into this last night.
And they would have to violate the Constitution in order to put prohibitions on it.
I mean, they would. They certainly
sure, but they
would
haven't
violate
yet.
And there is, I think what you're referring to, Conan, is a story here saying that a Clinton-linked lawyer, this according to the Washington Examiner, is pointing to U.S. code after the FBI raid, suggesting that there may be something in there that could disqualify Trump from ever holding office again. But again, that wouldn't be something that's in the Constitution at the very least. There's nothing prohibiting somebody who's even a felon from holding office. But I haven't looked at that story yet, so if you want to dig through that and check it out, we can do that. But an update here on some of the details are now coming out about interesting things surrounding how this raid came about, and one of them is that the judge who signed on the search warrant just so happens to be a lawyer who is connected to Jeffrey Epstein.
Dun, dun, dun.
Well, that's not unusual at all. I mean, that's fine, right? There's nothing weird going on about this.
Pretty unusual, because, like, you know...
Oh, I'm being facetious, no doubt.
Right, okay. How many judges have been private attorneys who worked for Jeffrey Epstein? There's probably more than one, but...
Probably quite a lot, yeah.
Yeah, but not, probably not more than a certain percentage of the federal... There's a lot of federal judges out there, I guess is what I'm saying. Florida federal magistrate judge who signed off on a search warrant authorizing the FBI raid of Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort donated to Barack Obama's 2008 presidential campaign. This, according to the New York Post.
That's certainly not unusual. I imagine the very same judge donated to someone to the Republicans' 2020 campaign or 2018 campaign, because that's just what these people do.
I don't know about that, because some of them are like lefty appointees and others are righty appointees, so they may stick to their political allegiances.
I'm thinking about them in terms of like Google and Visa and Facebook.
Judges
and
aren't the same as, judges are political animals. Google and Visa, they want to curry favor with all of the political sides. I don't know about that. I imagine that's public information, so somebody could go and look that up. This was months after he left the U.S. Attorney's Office, so he was a prosecutor.
Of course he was. That's the case of most federal judges.
To rep employees of convicted pedophile Jeffrey Epstein, who had received immunity in the long-running sex traffic investigation of the financier. So he worked...
Wait, that's not true, right? He was not, in fact, a convicted pedophile.
This is true. Yeah, he died before they could convict him of anything.
Yeah, he was convicted of like sex trafficking or something back in the 90s. But
he got
convicted of something, something way more minor than being a pedophile.
Sources tell the Post that Judge Bruce Reinhart approved the warrant that enabled federal agents to converge on the palatial South Florida estate Monday in what Trump called a, quote, unannounced raid on my home.
Well, they don't announce them in advance, dude. Sorry.
Don't. Reinhart was elevated to magistrate judge in March of 2018 after 10 years in private practice. That November, the Miami Herald reported that he had represented several of Epstein's employees, including by Reinhart's own admission to the outlet, Epstein's pilots, his scheduler, Sarah Kellen, and somebody else who Epstein once reportedly described as his Yugoslavian sex slave. Now, what's interesting is they say he was elevated to magistrate judge in March of 2018. I don't know how judges get appointed in the federal system. I know that here in New Hampshire, the governor has to sign off and the executive council has to sign off on all judge appointments. Now, it may not be that way. It may just be the Supreme Court.
Is that with federal judges as well?
No. Only state. I'm talking about state. So, like I said, I don't know how it works in the federal system. So maybe that the federal, like the president has no say over this. But a lot of times you hear when they refer to federal judges, oh, so-and-so was a blank appointee. They'll say, oh, he was a Bush appointee or he was a this appointee. So it sounds like...
Well, the federal judge who did the face mask thing on airplanes, whatever that was.
She was a right-wing appointee.
She was a Trump appointee.
Yes.
So maybe they are just appointed by the president.
That's what it sounds like. I just don't want to jump fully on to that conclusion, and it could very well be that the Supreme Court comes up with the list and then they hand it to the president and he just has to sign off on them. But if this judge was appointed in 2018, that would have been during the Trump administration.
Yep.
So it sounds like Trump appointed the very same judge that authorized the FBI raid on his house. That's the way that sounds to me.
How you like them apples?
Yeah. Oh, and apparently he also appointed
those who live by the sword die by the sword.
Yep.
And he also appointed the FBI head boss man. There's been tweets going around about how Trump was talking a big deal about this FBI person that he pointed to the chair, whatever what's the top dog there at FBI called? The
director?
Head agent or director. Thank you. Yeah, so he appointed somebody to the director, Christopher Wray, and presumably that's still the director of the FBI.
Yeah, but he had a lot of guys under him that he should have fired in the first week, John Bolton being the biggest one.
Well, as Jeffrey Tucker talks about a lot...
Fauci was his boy for a little while there.
Yeah, as Jeffrey Tucker talks about a lot these days, Trump can't fire most of these people. They're protected by some legislation that was passed in like the 1980s or something like that. To the extent that the institutional apparatus behind the president is powerless to do anything about it.
You mean the deep state?
Yes, very much so. It's real.
Is it? They're telling me every day that it's a conspiracy theory.
Well, that's because they're part of it, right?
Yes, exactly.
So that's the news about, there's more that they go on. I'll share the story over on our social media for those that haven't seen anything about this judge. It's just kind of an interesting little political angle to this whole thing. But now what's happening is some of these Republicans are out there finally taking the idea of police reform seriously, or in some cases, elimination.
FBI reform or elimination.
Now,
that would be really nice.
Hey, I tried to tell them this 2 years ago when I ran for sheriff.
The fact is, the Republicans are not going to get rid of the FBI. There's no way that's going to happen because they want to use them against their political enemies when they get back in control. So it's all politics that's being played. But we'll dig into it, and you can share your thoughts on Free Talk Live.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
When Monster Hunter International discovers one of Isaac Newton's wardstones being auctioned off, they decide to steal it and use it to destroy the Chaos God once and for all. But a mysterious thief upends their plan, and it soon becomes a race against time as something much older and infinitely more evil awakens in the jungles of South America. Monster Hunter Bloodlines by New York Times bestselling author Larry Correia and Baen Books. Visit monsterhunternation.com for more.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, that's really the reason why I amp is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
You can help more people hear the message of liberty by joining Free Talk Live's AMPS program on Patreon for as little as $5 a month. And you'll get access to special perks. Visit amps.freetalklive.com, amps.freetalklive.com. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
Are you tired of your taxes funding endless occupations around the world? Antiwar.com is run by people who understand that wars abroad become wars at home, wars on our freedoms. Antiwar.com is dedicated to bringing you the latest in news, views, interviews, and reviews from the top movers and shakers in the anti-occupation movement. Antiwar.com has it all, from thorough foreign policy analysis to interviews with whistleblowers who used to run the military-industrial complex. Anti-war, pro-free market. That's antiwar.com.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live. Phones are open here, and you can join us. Bring up whatever you want. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Here tonight, it's Ian.
Aria.
And Conan.
And Free Talk Live, brought to you by ForkFest. ForkFest 2023, the 7th annual, is coming up. And it will be happening June 15th through the 18th. It's going back to where it all started, which is before the Porcupine Freedom Festival. So it did 3 years before, 3 years after, and now it's going back to the beginning. And it's also going back to a shorter ForkFest as well. Now, there's nothing official with ForkFest. It's just what a bunch of people talked about after the fact, and it seemed like most people agreed on, so that's what we're promoting here on Free Talk Live. You want to stay for a whole week prior to the 18th? By all means. Some people might just very well do that. But the 15th through the 18th is what we're talking about. You can go to forkfest.party, and you can learn more about that event. By the way, it is a fork of the Porcupine Freedom Festival. That's where it came from. And next year, the Porcupine Freedom Festival is going to be in its 20th year. And it has been sold out this year and the year previous. So the last 2 years, PorcFest has been sold out. That means it's probably going to sell out again next year. So if you're even considering going to the Porcupine Freedom Festival, you think you're going to do it, you should probably grab those tickets.
Is this why you're advertising this 11 months into the future?
Yeah.
Dude, people were calling Rogers Campground to book their sites on August the 1st, the very first day that it was possible to do so.
When are PorcFest tickets available?
Right now.
Really?
And they're early bird tickets, so they're cheaper than they will be in January or March or whenever.
I don't know. PorcFest might need to start looking into a bigger.
There is no bigger.
Nothing else.
Wow.
The Rogers Campground is the largest campground in New Hampshire, and it can hold 3,000 people.
Maybe we need to get some richer to buy us some land. 300 acres out in the woods.
Then you have to develop it.
The
Rogers Campground is nice, right? Because it's got bathrooms. They ain't the greatest bathrooms or anything. They're camp bathrooms.
But
they are bathrooms. It's got a little general store there, and it's not real camping, right? Like, this isn't rustic camping. If it were a rustic event, you wouldn't get 3,000 people.
A good 20% of the area is just covered by RVs, isn't it?
No, it's more than that. The RV section is the largest section of the park. There's the RV section, and then there's the sort of the normal tent camping section, and then there's a motel. So you get the choice of whatever, you want to take it easy in the motel, you want to do an RV, or a more rustic style. You can do that there. You go to forkfest.party to learn more about the event. Go to the Rogers Campground and get your campsite reserved. We don't expect ForkFest is going to sell out because there are no tickets to ForkFest, but there are campsites. In theory, the park could, enter a sold-out status as far as every site would be sold out. It didn't even come close this year for ForkFest, so I wouldn't expect that to be the case in 2023. It's a much more intimate event, so if that sounds more interesting to you, you could still attend both of them. But I recommend you get those PorcFest tickets early if you're wanting to attend the Porcupine Freedom Festival. All right, so we've been talking about the Trump raid. They raided Trump's house, the Mar-a-Lago resort, or whatever the hell it is down there in Florida, and they went in there yesterday. And we've been discussing what some of the ramifications are. What are some of the allegations? They're saying that apparently the lawyer or the judge that approved this had worked with Jeffrey Epstein in the past and was a Democratic donor, even though it looks like he was appointed to his federal judgeship during the Trump administration. And according to WashingtonExaminer.com, the top attorney for Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign is saying that there's U.S. code in Title 18, Section 2071 that is relevant here. He says the media is missing the really, really big reason as to why the raid is a potential blockbuster in American politics.
Blockbuster.
And it says here in that code, he's got an image of it. Part B, whoever having the custody of any such record, and again, they went in there to take a bunch of records, proceedings, map, books, documents, paper, or other thing willfully and unlawfully conceals, removes, mutilates, obliterates, falsifies, or destroys the same, shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 3 years or both, and shall forfeit his office and be disqualified from holding any office under the United States.
So that means they're going to go after Hillary next, right?
No, of course not.
For all those 30,000 emails.
Yeah, I brought that up. They didn't.
And the smashing of phones with hammers and whatnot. They're going to go after Hillary next, right?
Well, she openly admitted to taking, classified information and hosting it on her own private server. She openly admitted to all of this stuff. And as you mentioned, the 30,000 deleted emails, I don't even remember the story behind that. I remember it was a thing But no, I mean...
Yeah, they deleted them all because there was just yoga and stuff, right?
This is because Trump is, for better or worse, he was an outsider, and they want to prevent anything like that from ever happening again. They only want career politicians to...
Who they own.
Yes.
So do you think that's the angle here, is that they're going to charge Trump under this particular code? Because they would have to charge him.
They've been trying for 6 years now to get something on him.
I don't think they have to, and I think they know they don't have to. Trump's career as president is over.
Why? This is going to galvanize his supporters.
They are out there.
His supporters are inconsequential compared to the number of mainstream Republicans out there. Oh, I understand they're on Twitter and Facebook screaming about how upset they are and how they're buying ammo, but these are the same people who have come and take it flags and thin blue line stickers. Dude, they are full of it.
Aria, there is a huge portion of this population who would support Trump.
There was.
They still support Trump.
No, they don't.
And now you have the independents that if they had known about Biden and Biden crime family, they would not have voted for him if they had known at the time. Yeah, trust me.
Trump does not have the support.
Trump might not be popular in this room, but in this country, he is hugely popular.
This would be a question for somebody who's active in the Republican Party. Even though, Aria, you and I are registered Republicans officially,
we don't count.
We don't spend time hanging around in those circles. So it would be interesting to talk to somebody who's active in like a local Florida or Texas or something Republican Party and say, all right, take the temperature of the room. How many people at a given Republican meeting are Trump supporters versus not? Because that's ultimately all that matters. If he's got enough supporters within the Republican Party, he can get through the primary.
I think another thing you need to consider, Aria, is all of the people, like, for example, my dad. He won't even admit he's a Republican, even though he votes Republican. He always would say, I am a conservative, and the Republicans can go screw off.
I've considered that. That was the reason I predicted in early 2015, or late 2015, or 2014, whatever year it was, that Donald Trump was going to win the Republican primary and go against Hillary and win the presidential election. I predicted that more than 13 months prior to the actual election. I know all of this. That was 6 years ago. Things have changed.
What has
it's
changed?
Not going to happen now.
He is more popular than he was then.
Oh, dude, he can't even get 500,000 people on his social media platform. That's how few people care about what he has to say now. He got nuked. He's destroyed. His career is finished. He's done.
Well, time's going to tell on this.
Not buying it, and I think Truth Social is very popular among the people who use it.
Well,
and consider they're all probably real people. And so you have to consider, if you're going to compare it to Twitter, how many, maybe 50% of Twitter is
There's
bots?
a bunch of bots.
But how many followers did he have on Twitter? 100 million?
You got to remember, he had 500,000 followers a month into Truth Social when we were talking about it. And we were talking about it because he hadn't come back to the site. He came on the first day, said he'd be there soon, and then it was more than a month later before he actually came back. But supposedly he's been posting there, and because
since the raid, sure, because he's got nowhere else.
Not since the raid. I mean elsewhere.
Okay.
Since over the last few months, supposedly he's been posting, but I'm not allowed to use Truth Social, and I suspect you probably aren't either. So it'll be up to you, Conan, if you really wanted to find out.
I'm on it.
Oh, you are?
I haven't looked at it, but I know.
Go pull it up. Pull it up. Let's find out.
I'm on it from my mom.
Okay, I don't care what your reasons
she's
are.
not on the Facebook.
It might be entertaining as hell. I mean, I would follow Trump on Truth Social.
See if I remember my login.
I don't like him, but I find him entertaining. But I am curious, like, we knew he had 500,000 when he wasn't posting. Now that he is posting, and it's been, close to half a year, I wonder how many followers he's got. There's more coming up here. This is Free Talk Live. The Free State Project has reached its goal of 20,000 liberty lovers who've pledged to move to New Hampshire and get active to achieve liberty in our lifetime. Perhaps you're trying to figure out what part of New Hampshire should be your destination. If so, consider Keene. You'll find more than 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com. Keene is famous for its historic, publicity-generating activism, as well as being the liberty media capital of the world. It's home to freekeene.com, New Hampshire's destination for liberty activism, news, and opinion. For years, we've been compiling over 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com, where you'll learn about some of what's happening here and what makes Keene a great place to live. If you love liberty, you'll probably enjoy anywhere you end up in the Shire. But do your due diligence first. Please visit move.freekeene.com for the full list of over 150 reasons to move to Keene. That's move.freekeene.com.
From Feature Story News in New York, I'm William Denslow. President Joe Biden signed the paperwork giving the US's approval for Finland and Sweden to join NATO. The approval was never in doubt, but it's another sign of America's continued support for Ukraine. Nick Harper reports from Washington.
President Biden said it was a watershed moment for security not just in Europe but the whole of the world. President Biden said the US is committed to the transatlantic alliance, the US now becoming the 23rd ally to approve the two countries joining NATO. And that follows the bill passing Congress with overwhelming approval. In the Senate, 95 of the 100 senators voted for Sweden and Finland to join, and that coming off the back of the announcement this week that the US is supplying another $1 billion in weaponry to Ukraine, its largest commitment so far, taking the total commitment to date to nearly $10 billion in assistance. I'm Nick Harper in Washington.
US Speaker Nancy Pelosi says she didn't know about the FBI search of former President Donald Trump's Florida home ahead of time. The Federal Bureau of Investigation raided Mr. Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort on Monday in connection to documents, some of them classified, that he allegedly brought there instead of handing over to the National Archives. Republicans have reacted with outrage. Kate Fisher reports from Washington.
House Speaker Democrat Nancy Pelosi told MSNBC's Morning Joe that she was as surprised as anyone else, but that she believes authorities must have had reason for the raid.
To have a visit like that, you need a warrant. To have a warrant, you need justification. And that says that no one is above the law, not even a president or a former president of the United States.
Meanwhile, the Republican Party is reportedly trying to leverage anger over the search to generate fundraising for candidates ahead of midterm elections in November. House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy threatened to investigate the Justice Department if the GOP takes control of the chamber. Kate Fisher, Washington.
US tennis star Serena Williams has announced her retirement. The 23-time Grand Slam champion says she'll step away from the sport after the US Open. Sarah Walton reports from New York.
The 28-year-old made her announcement in a cover story article for the September edition of Vogue magazine, saying she's evolving away from tennis towards other things that are important to her. Coached by her father alongside sister Venus, she started playing the sport when she was just 4 years old while living in Compton, California. Williams' first Grand Slam victory came at Wimbledon in 1998 when she was just 16. Her last was in Australia in 2017 when she was pregnant with her first child.
And officials in Brussels are awaiting comments on a take it or leave it compromise text aimed at reviving the Iran nuclear deal. After days of mediating indirect talks in Vienna between Tehran and Washington, the European Union said decisions must now be taken in capitals. From bureaus worldwide, this.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live, and phones are open. You can join us here. Bring up whatever you want at 603-283-6160 if you want to weigh in on the raid on Donald Trump's home down in Florida, the Mar-a-Lago. Is it a resort? I don't know that much about the place. I've heard that a bunch of people work there, so it sounds like a place you can get a room and stay at. But honestly,
I thought it was like a golf thing.
Yeah, that's kind of the feeling that I got about it. Anyway, they raided his house there. And that happened yesterday. It was breaking news during the show. We did cover it at the time, but we didn't know a whole lot about what was going on. And now more information is coming out. Some people suggest that this may be an angle of the current administration, the FBI, to target Trump for a violation of U.S. Code 18 U.S.C. 2071, concealment, removal, or mutilation generally, specifically regarding certain records. Regarding the U.S. government's records, so
they're just throwing wet noodles at the wall to see which ones stick. They've been doing this for 6 years. They're trying everything that they can, and you know what? There's a segment of this country who are going to believe just because the FBI went to this place, went to Mar-a-Lago, broke in, took the safe, opened up the safe, and got whatever was in there. Just that is proof to them
that he's
guilty.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, but there are also news articles that say that they took out 12 boxes or whatever of classified documents. I mean,
well, we don't know what they took out. We just know they took out boxes of something.
And when nothing comes of this, 1 year from now, the people who believe today that he's guilty are still going to believe that he's guilty, even though nothing is going to come of this.
You think nothing's going to come of this?
Or possibly, but I mean, but if nothing, but all the other conspiracies that have been launched at this guy. have all fallen through the floor. They have been proven to be false.
Same. The people who say, that nothing's going to come of this are going to be saying the same thing a year from now, regardless of what does come of this.
Well, if criminal charges come of this, specifically to this U.S. code, it would bar him from running for office under the United States.
So then why not Hillary as well?
Well, why not?
Because she's one of them.
But who's going to stand up and make the point, make this a huge point that, hey, look, there are a lot of politicians, career politicians, who are doing the same thing all the time.
Trump should, but will he? I don't know.
Exactly, and that's why I don't believe that he is who he is.
What do you mean by that?
The savior of the country, the savior of the conservative party. I think he's bought and sold. I think that I don't. Yeah, but I mean,
but yet he's not. That I think is probably true because obviously, for the most part, he did the state's bidding. He was, going along with the COVID program for the most part.
Warp Speed.
And what was Warp Speed?
That was the vaccination program that he launched
to make it happen sooner. Right.
But I mean, everyone thinks that he's going to save us all, and that he's fighting the deep state, and that he's going to drain the swamp.
He didn't do it the first time.
They've changed it now that he just unearthed the swamp to let us all know the swamp monsters. Okay. And the next time around, he's going to actually go after him. He's going to fire them.
It's ridiculous.
He has claimed that he's going to fire a bunch of people if he comes back, and I'm all right with that.
He'll just appoint another bunch of
He didn't fire them the first time. Why would he fire them the second time? Yeah, he did, but nothing changed, right? And this is again part of what Jeffrey Tucker's been talking about throughout the last year. He can't fire anyone who's. These people are career-long bureaucrats. They're entrenched. The people who's been
unions
in the Department of Education, they've been in there 30 to 40 years or whatever. That's their entire career. They're not going anywhere.
Right,
and replacing their boss means nothing to them.
Can he eliminate departments? Can he just go in there and eliminate the Department of Education? So. Why not?
Because he'll get a bullet in his head like JFK did.
If it was created by Congress, it has to be eliminated by Congress.
He's the executive leader.
He's the executive leader, which means he could do something like fire somebody or whatever. But according to Arya, that's not as easy as you think.
Well, I'm going off of what Jeffrey Tucker said. We talked about it with him when we had him on the show during Free Talk Live. Anyone who wants to go more can go, find that episode. And when we're at Fork Fest, anyone who wants to find out more can go find that episode. I don't remember which one it was, but we had him on and he talked about it. He made a compelling case. He cited the laws. I actually think it was the 1880s and not the 1980s. But I mean, it's been in place a long time. The president can't.
I think that the president has the ability to fire the administrator types. Like he can go in. You see that happening, right?
Yes, but it's like firing the principal of a public school. He can fire the principal. He can't fire the secretary or
Correct.
That's too bad.
Correct.
And those are the ones who are actually running things.
Right. You know what? We need a civil war. There's just no other way out of this.
That's what all the Trump supporters are saying.
Well, there's a lot of that going on right now in social media, and that's another story I have here. Vice magazine reporting at vice.com that after the news broke that the FBI has searched Trump's Mar-a-Lago home, the supporters openly called for armed violent response and ultimately civil war. Oh, by the way, I don't think you mentioned on the air how many followers Trump has on Trump Social.
3.7 million as of right now this minute.
That's not bad, Arya.
No, that's more than I would have expected, but that's not going to win him any elections.
That's followers. Now, when you consider that when you create your Truth Social account, you are automatically following the Donald.
I mean, you could unfollow.
And you have to unfollow, so that number is probably about right of who is
how
actually...
many people are on the site.
Correct. I can't find that number. It was 2 million a month ago.
Right.
But then again, how many of those people are like you? They signed up and they haven't logged in since they signed up and created the account.
Well, that's also a question with Twitter as well.
Exactly. Right. Just that number as well as the bots on Twitter.
At any rate, I mean, the 3.5 million, that's certainly impressive. It's a lot more than we got on our social media server. However...
Sure. God, I can't imagine dealing with all the spammers if we have that many people.
That's not going to win him any elections.
Civil War 2.0 just kicked off, wrote one user on Twitter, with another adding, one step closer to a kinetic civil war. Others said they were ready to take part, quote, I already bought my ammo, unquote. Far-right,
that's a really stupid thing to say on the internet as well.
MAGA, QAnon, and far-right message boards and Telegram channels lit up Monday night with calls for a violent response to what some extremists see as a political attack directed by the Biden administration.
Well, how could it not be? Right? How can it be construed as anything else? It's an attack by the Biden administration against Donald Trump.
Yeah, it's clearly political, and I had said for a long time here, oh yeah, there's no way they're going to bring charges against Donald Trump because I figured he was part of the machine, and he was, but he still seems to be disliked by a lot of the people in that machine, and so that's probably
I didn't
what's
expect
going
it
on here.
because he was never governor of Illinois.
Well, they have gone after those people. Yeah, that's
They
true.
have. But as far as I'm aware, that's pretty much been it for politicians. Like, if you want to be a governor and then go to prison, be governor of Illinois.
The funny thing, it's funny you mentioned that. Rod Blagojevich, who was one of the more recent governors of Illinois to actually go to prison, has been popping up on my Twitter feed recently, and he's out of prison now.
Good for him.
And he's just like cracking jokes about going to prison.
Well, he probably didn't belong in prison in the first place, right?
He probably did. He's a politician. Are you kidding?
Okay, fair point.
I mean, which one of them doesn't belong in prison? But it's interesting that now he's kind of making his image all about the guy being the guy that went to prison as a governor. It's funny.
He's got street cred now.
He's
man.
taking it. Yeah, he's having fun with it.
Out of all the politicians floating around there, that guy is just he's always come off as so slimy to me.
Yeah.
I mean, he just reeks of politician.
But Donald Trump doesn't.
They all do, but that guy,
Okay.
he just got it's just coming off. It's coming right out of his pores.
One user on Twitter wrote in response to the news, quote, "This is how you light the match to a civil war," unquote. Similar rhetoric was shared on Telegram and far-right channels, quote, "Civil war is coming to America. There won't be any more elections," said one member. Another said...
They're so insane. I mean... These are like the people who sit there on 4chan reading QAnon all day, every day, talking with other alt-right people on Telegram. They're so detached from reality. If they genuinely believe that this is going to lead to a civil war, I kind of feel bad for them.
All right, you can only kick the dog so many times.
Dude, these people aren't dogs. They're idiots.
Most dogs are idiots.
My dog is smarter than these people.
Do you kick your dog?
No.
Well, you don't have anything to worry about. It's never going to bite you.
A total war on distance is another one, saying a total war on distance is about to unfold, not behind closed doors, but
half of these
blatantly
people
in
probably
public.
don't even own guns, man.
The people who are complaining about civil war?
Yeah.
What are you talking about? They're the stalkers. They're the preppers.
No, they're not.
There's probably a bunch of them that are federal agents themselves that are trying to gin up violence.
Let's not forget that
The
element.
ones who own guns are probably the FBI agents, but the rest of them are just mouth-breathing neckbeards who live in their mom's basement.
All right, what would it take? So this political maneuvering, trying to take out the hero, the god emperor, is not going to cause civil war for you. What would the match strike be?
We can talk about that coming up here in moments. Personally, I'm not interested in a war. I'm interested in peaceful solutions. But we'll talk about that coming up. The number is 603-283-6160, because you're right, Conan. You do push people into a corner, and like an angry dog, it's going to snap.
Yep.
We're coming up.
This is Michael Dean from the Freedom Fiends. I've run websites since 1996 and have used over a dozen web hosts in that time. AgristHosting.com is the only one that hasn't broken my heart. Agrist Hosting's uptime and service is stellar, and their DDoS mitigation is the best I've seen. That's important because if you tell the truth in this world, you'll ruffle feathers. And some people will try dirty tricks to silence your voice. No matter what the haters hit us with, Agrist Hosting keeps our websites online. If you have a mission-critical commercial presence or a world-changing activism site, you cannot tolerate any skullduggery. So go with AgristHosting.com. Have a WordPress or blog site, but you're not satisfied with performance or uptime? Or just want raw hosting? Want to pay with Bitcoin? Agrist Hosting specializes in high-performance hosting with personalized service. Go to AgristHosting.com and click on the button that says Get Hosted. That's AgristHosting.com.
I'm crazy about My Magic Mud. This is the most important oral care product created this millennium, and I'm not kidding. We all have different opinions on politics and issues, but we all have mouths. And I want yours to be as clean as possible, with teeth as bright as they were meant to be. I will never be without My Magic Mud. It's a little surprising, but man, does it work. If you only listen to one thing I say ever, go to mymagicmud.com and get 20% off with code FTL. mymagicmud.com, code FTL.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
You gotta eat, and you don't have to go broke. I'm Holland Cook with Inflation Hacks. A report by Supermarket News says you will pay less using self-checkout than at staffed registers, where all that stuff tempts impulse buying. On Facebook, Sarah R. says, I've discovered that around 10 a.m. on Wednesdays, my local grocery store marks down food that's close to expiring. She says I stock up for the week on whatever meats, bread, and veggies they have on clearance, and it is so helpful. And on BuzzFeed, Bonnie says that cutting down on pop and sugary drinks has made my mood better. And when Megan says she couldn't deal with meat prices, she started eating more plant-based food, and she calls it a positive life change. How are you coping? Post your inflation hacks at andyoucanquoteme.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
Talk Live. Phones open. You can join us here. 603-283-6160 is the number. That's 603-283-6160. I want to say thank you to James Hellerman, who is a Free Talk Live supporter of our AMPS Patreon. You can do that. James, by the way, became a gold level supporter. All we ask is $5 a month. James is doing at least 10, so thank you, James, for that. Definitely appreciate the assistance. AMPS stands for Advertise, Market, Promote, and Support. It's a way for you to get behind what we do here. If you like the ideas of liberty being heard on close to 200 radio stations all across the country on a weekly basis, and you want to help us expand that, then you can join the AMPS program over at amps.freetalklive.com. That's amps.freetalklive.com, as James has done. So thank you again, James. We're going to go back to your phone calls and thoughts. There's a lot of talk about civil war. And Conan, you asked a pretty important question coming up here. I want to come back to that, so we'll recap that. But first, Major Payne is on the line in Michigan. You're on Free Talk Live with Ian, Aria, and Conan.
Hey, guys.
Hey.
Yeah, I was just listening to another station, and there was an interview on.
You're not allowed to do that. Sorry, go ahead.
Hey, the dial spins both ways, my friend.
All right, man.
Anyway, so the FBI was down before they raided Mar-a-Lago this time. They were down there 2 weeks before reviewing all of these documents. Trump and them had tried and work with these guys, you know, figure
That
out
was a mistake.
whatever him they had. And so anyway, they'd already reviewed all this stuff, and they said, all right, well, we'll leave it set for a minute, but what you guys got to do is put a padlock, an extra lock on the safe, so nobody else can get in it, and we'll keep the key to that.
Wait, who are they talking to? Who was being interviewed?
Huh?
Who was being interviewed?
The FBI, when they raided Mar-a-Lago, they broke into his safe.
Yeah, but where are you hearing this from? Who said this?
What sort of safe has a padlock on it?
This was from Rudy Giuliani's lips on the Joe Pag show here just a minute ago.
All right.
But, so So anyway, so they say, okay, you got to put an extra padlock on so we know nothing gets tampered with till we come back. So when they come back to raid it, the dummies forgot the key to the padlock. That's why they had to break in.
Interesting.
I see what you're saying now. I mean, they could have used, a piece of tamper-proof tape or something to achieve the same effect. I've never seen a safe that was designed that way, but I mean, that would at least make sense. I was wondering initially, why padlock a safe. The internal lock is going to be significantly better than any sort of padlock you could add to it.
If they walked, here's my question: if they walked in a week ago and were able to, view and acquire all the information that they needed, why did they need to conduct this raid 1 week later?
They never need to conduct a raid, right? I mean, and again, they did not.
Obviously not. If they were there a week ago and they were getting all the information that they requested.
Well, let me clarify. They did not raid Mar-a-Lago. They showed up with a search warrant and they searched the property. That is not a raid. Having been through a raid, what they did there is not a raid. I want to clarify that first of all. But there is never any actual reason for the FBI to conduct an actual raid. I understand they get their paperwork in order. They have their search warrant. They show up, they knock, and they search the property. I get that.
Yeah, they have
I
guns.
don't necessarily approve of it, but that's not a raid. Right. Going the extra mile and kicking in people's doors, smashing out windows, actually raiding a place, there's never any reason for that.
Yeah, that's just psychopathic.
But that's not what they did here. Right? All they did here was serve a search warrant and search the property.
They didn't come in with flashbangs and such, but they had no real reason to do it. Like I said, they already reviewed all this stuff 2 weeks before. All they had to do was give them a call and say,
well, and apparently they're not saying why they did this. Apparently, so far, the FBI, the Department of So-Called Justice, has not yet commented on the rationale or the intention or whatever they're doing.
Right when Major said that, because I wasn't aware of this 1 week ago event. Right when he mentioned that, my spidey senses went off. And now I'm just waiting for some planted evidence to have been found today or yesterday. When was this? Yeah, last night.
Last night.
Yeah,
because if they were there,
Trump wasn't there, so he couldn't watch what they were loading into these boxes. So yeah, this could be, another blow up the USS Cole type thing. Let's start something here.
Thank you, Major, for the call tonight. Appreciate hearing from you. And they definitely have started something, as far as they've started a lot of people talking on the internet about potential civil war. And Conan, you'd asked a question right before we went to the last break. Can you go ahead and re-ask that question?
Well, so it's been one of the main topics. It's been floating for at least 2 years now, that people are talking about either they can't peacefully divorce, and balkanize, secede from this country.
Well,
we could, except that there's precedent that was settled, 150 years ago.
That's what people keep saying.
That's the last thing you would ever want to do, because the feds are going to come after you. They're going to kill you. They're going to make an example of it, and then you're going to be called racist for the rest of your existence.
But things have changed.
But what would it so?
I mean, we're all from the South. Let's not pretend that the Civil War, the first one, wasn't about slavery and racism, because it was. I mean, sure.
It
was states' rights, but the only reason they cared about states' rights was because they wanted slaves.
They were being taxed unfairly as well.
They were being taxed unfairly as well, but I mean, every single one of the states that seceded cited slavery as their prime reason. So let's not pretend it wasn't about that and that they weren't being racist.
It was primarily about keeping the Union together.
That's what Lincoln was
from the North side.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, you say that this political maneuvering, taking out the big guy, isn't going to be enough? You're going to have. No. By the way, there were protests at Mar-a-Lago today. The news says a couple of dozen, which isn't a whole lot, but there were a lot of vehicles, and they all had their flags, and they're all serious about saving America.
Yeah,
and you're saying that's not enough. They're just talking online. They're just venting, and this is not going to. This level of maneuvering is not going to lead to a civil war ever. But
no. Well, don't put words in my mouth.
But what would?
Don't put words in my mouth.
What did you
first of all,
say?
I'm saying there's not enough support among these people for it to lead to any meaningful civil war. You might get something along the lines of the January the 6th quote riot, where a few hundred people are upset and they do something stupid and they end up getting arrested.
Just
or whatever.
The tip of the iceberg.
No,
those are just the people who are able.
And we learned that from the January 6th riots. They don't have the widespread support they thought they did. They don't have the mainstream Republican support that they thought they did.
They do, but they're not.
No,
they
dude,
don't, they
did you
don't,
not pay any attention? Mainstream Republicans backed way the hell away from Trump and the Republican base that supported him after the January 6th riots. They want nothing to do with him.
Most conservatives don't riot. Well,
and that's why this won't lead to anything.
All right, but maybe the Civil War won't be the right. Maybe it'll be the left, because we know that they'll go out.
Why would the left? The left is cheering for this, though.
I'm saying what would cause the Civil War. Maybe it's not someone assassinating the Trump. Maybe it's something. Maybe one of the lefties gets hit and they decide to go burn cities down again.
Well, I don't want to see a civil war.
I don't either.
I'm with
but
Dan
he's
on this
asking
one.
an important question.
But maybe it won't be. But maybe it won't be bloody. Maybe it'll be a different type of civil war.
I mean, I don't know what would cause it. I'm so detached from how the average American views the political system that I have no idea what's going to make these people.
Maybe civil war is the wrong word. Maybe it'll be a revolution. Because
but what does that even mean?
That
overthrowing the U.S. government and installing their own people?
Civil war is when the government wins. Revolution is when the people win. So maybe the people will have enough of being spied on and being not being able to buy groceries at the store because the trucks aren't rolling anymore because the fuel prices are too damn high. I mean, there's so many reasons that people are waking up, snapping awake to the ideas that hey, let's get our kids out of these schools. Let's put some more money under the mattress, or let's invest in crypto because we can't trust the Federal Reserve any longer. There's so many factors that I think would cause a shrinking middle class to snap. They're getting kicked. You can't kick the dog too many times, otherwise it's going to run off, live under the neighbor's porch, or it's going to bite back.
See, I think it's going to take more than that. I remember something someone said to me, some former military guy a long time ago, that people, as long as people are fed, they're not going to revolt.
That's true. That's a fact.
We're going to have to see widespread starvation and things like that. People pulling their kids out of school, that's a good sign, that's a good step, but that's nowhere near being angry enough to actually take up arms against the government.
Well, I think that is an important factor, is how hungry are
3 days.
people.
It's like 3 days, I think. 3 days on an empty stomach.
Yeah.
And and that's how fast it takes for your Walmart to empty of all food, by the way, or your grocery store.
Oh, it would be overnight, wouldn't it?
All the things that you want to eat, they'll be empty in that night. But then the next,
you don't like Frosted Flakes or whatever would be left.
Hey, if it's all that it's left, but I don't need your Frosted Flakes.
So there's a lot of people talking online. There's a Vice article here that we had shared a little bit from, with some excerpts from what some people are saying. Now, obviously, some of them are federal agents that are undercover trying to gin up violence so they have an excuse to arrest more people. That's definitely a factor. But some of them are probably serious. They are probably talking about a civil war, and they're serious about it.
The one that said he's already bought his ammo, absolutely a Fed.
Probably. So the question is, what are they meaning? What do they have in their minds when they're talking about a civil war? What does their vision of that actually look like?
Make America great again.
The number is 603.
They've been saying it for 6 years.
28360. Well, are they talking about just a war at the ballot box? Because that's not a civil war.
Work.
603-283-6160. You're not going to vote your way out of this situation with putting new people into Washington, D.C. That's how we got this far. I don't advocate for violence. Peaceful secession is the answer. There's more coming up.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless free market non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealestate.com
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. The White House says it had no advance knowledge of the FBI's search of former U.S. President Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago residence. The Department of Justice and the FBI haven't commented publicly, but according to sources, the search of Trump's Florida property was related to classified documents that the former president may have taken from the White House. Here's White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre.
The president was not briefed, was not aware of it. No one at the White House was given a heads up. No, that did not happen.
Trump and some of his Republican allies criticized the move, with the former president posting a campaign-style video in response in which he called the U.S. a failing state. The Justice Department has also been looking into efforts by Trump and his allies to overturn the results of the 2020 presidential election. Meanwhile, Joe Biden has signed the paperwork giving America's approval for Finland and Sweden to join NATO. The approval was never in doubt, but it's another sign of America's continued support for Ukraine and allies in Europe as they battle to counter Russian aggression. FSN's Nick Harper reports from Washington.
President Biden said it was a watershed moment for security not just in Europe but the whole of the world. President Biden said the US is committed to the transatlantic alliance, the US now becoming the 23rd ally to approve the two countries joining NATO. And that follows the bill passing Congress with overwhelming approval. In the Senate, 95 of the 100 senators voted for Sweden and Finland to join, and that coming off the back of the announcement this week that the US is supplying another $1 billion in weaponry to Ukraine, its largest commitment so far, taking the total commitment to date to nearly $10 billion in assistance.
Disappointing earnings for several chip makers weighed on investor sentiment during trading hours in the U.S. on Tuesday, and traders are eagerly awaiting the release of some key inflation data. FSN's William Denzelo reports from New York.
On Monday, Nvidia posted disappointing earnings figures citing weakness in the gaming sector, and chipmaker Micron shares fell nearly 4% Tuesday after announcing revenue projections may miss previous estimates. It was also a bad day of trading for Novavax, falling nearly 30%. It's cut its revenue guidance based on weak demand for its COVID-19 vaccines. The Dow Jones closed the day down 0.2%. The S&P closed down 0.4% and the Nasdaq slid 1.2%. Traders now await the release of Consumer Price Index data due out Wednesday.
In other news, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration has announced a new strategy to try and stretch the country's short supply of monkeypox vaccines. Health providers will now be able to split doses in the hopes of vaccinating up to 5 times as many people against the virus. From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks, looking in more detail today at the reaction to the US drone strike that killed the Al-Qaeda leader Ayman al-Zawahiri 10 days ago while he was reading a book on the balcony of his safe house as dawn broke over Kabul. For the CIA, it was the culmination of a hunt that had endured for more than 2 decades and cost the lives of several US intelligence officers engaged in the search for the architect of the 9/11 attacks on America in September of 2001. Mark Polymeropoulos is a former CIA officer who lost close colleagues and friends in the hunt for al-Zawahiri.
General Michael Hayden, who was head of the CIA, put out on social media right after this news broke, essentially said, "Remember Coast." On December 30th, 2009, we lost 7 CIA officers to a double agent, an Al-Qaeda double agent. That was part of the Zawahiri hunt. So the other day when I learned that Zawahiri was finally killed, really, again, deeply, deeply emotional. I took a moment. I'm down here in North Carolina. I had to go outside. But ultimately, I really hope this brings some closure to the families, not only of 9/11 victims and the victims of Al-Qaeda terrorism, but in particular, again, personally for me, the families of those CIA officers who were killed.
And he argues the Taliban should be held to account for al-Zawahiri's presence in the Afghan capital, saying it's a violation of the Doha Accords signed by the leaders of the new Afghan government. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
The main news again. The White House says it had no advance knowledge of the FBI's search of Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago residence, which has set off a political firestorm in the U.S. Joe Biden signs the paperwork giving U.S. approval for Finland and Sweden to join NATO. And disappointing earnings for several chip makers weigh on investor sentiment as traders eagerly await the release of some key inflation data. That is the latest Feature Story News.
Scary day in Virginia after a mass shooting at the offices of Slash Forward Marketing. Management described the violent scene as incredibly inopportune if the company wants to hit its sales goals.
Gunshots were first heard around 9:40 a.m. VP of Sales Ken Miller placed the first 911 call.
911, what's your emergency?
Hello? Someone is shooting everyone at our office. Can you guys do something about this? We really can't afford to lose focus right now.
The alleged shooter, Brian Henderson, a Slash Forward employee, was described by Miller as a so-so salesman and a, quote, candy ass who obviously couldn't howl with the big dogs. Slash Forward management said the company is rattled to the core by this poorly timed shooting.
It was horrible, really. But hashtag pray for Slash Forward is trending, and we are getting tons of media exposure, so I think we're going to survive.
Donations for the families of victims are pouring into the company website, as are applications for the 18 job openings listed immediately after the shooting.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live. You can join us here. The number 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Joining you tonight, it's Ian.
Oh, yeah.
And Conan.
Kicking off the second hour of the show. We've been talking about some updates regarding the Trump raid. The FBI raiding Trump's Mar-a-Lago home yesterday evening and ostensibly taking out somewhere around a dozen boxes of something. Presumably papers or paperwork. We had Major Payne call in and allege that he heard a report today, so it's hearsay, claiming that the FBI had already gone to Trump's home like a week ago and had already looked through his things. And but now they went there and they served a search warrant. Mm-hmm. So it's a little more official at this point. And if it is true that Trump was working with the FBI, well, that was a mistake on his part. He should never talk to the cops. But, of course, Trump likes the cops. He's
the law and order president, right?
He's a Republican. A lot of these Republicans like the police, but now all of a sudden they're changing their tune. Yep. After, years of raiding peaceful people, they raided us. They raided Project Veritas late last year. There were so many different people who, never harmed another human being that the FBI has targeted. But now the Republicans are finally ready to start talking about defunding or abolishing the FBI. Well, I got news for you guys. It's never going to happen.
Why not?
All the talk, because it's all talk. It's all politics. It's a bunch of Republicans saying, talking about doing something about this. And there's talk. There's definitely some tough talk going on, social media right now from Republican representatives. By the way, Conan, you had some breaking news apparently during the last news break.
Yeah, more fallout that might push more Republicans to want to defund some departments like the FBI. Republican Representative Scott Perry of Pennsylvania says the FBI has confiscated his cell phone. This morning while traveling with my family, 3 FBI agents visited me and seized my cell phone. They made no attempt to contact my lawyer, who would have made arrangements for them to have my phone if that was their wish. Mm-hmm. I am outraged, though not surprised, because of what just happened last night.
So presumably they're looking for information about January 6th or who knows what.
He's a Trump ally. Mm-hmm. He's always been in support of Trump's accusations of the election being stolen.
Does he really think that the FBI would contact his attorney and be like, hey, look, we want your client to turn over his phone now. Here's a search warrant. And that he could just drop by the attorney's office at his leisure and hand over his cell phone?
But that's how it's supposed to be done.
Dude, that is...
Well,
that is not how it works for anyone.
Well, they did serve him a warrant this morning in front of his family, and they took his phone right then and there.
I wonder if it's going to be more. I mean, is this the second of many targetings of political targetings? Because the more they target these people, the more likely there could be some sort of political backlash against them. But they're not going to abolish the FBI. And if they do abolish the FBI, they'll just reform it under some other triple-letter alphabet agency. There's not going to be a reduction in the federal so-called law enforcement goon apparatus.
Right, they're entrenched.
They're not only are they entrenched, but the reality is the Republicans know that they can use the FBI for their political reasons, and the Democrats have opened the door now for this. Right, like before, this was unheard of.
Well, the Republican politicians know this, but will the conservative voter base put up with this nonsense in the coming years?
What else are they going to do?
They're going to burn it down.
Well, that's what I mean. When people talk about a civil war, what do they really mean? Burn what down? Are they actually going to go to D.C. and light the buildings on fire?
It could happen.
Well, it could happen. But what do they mean when they're talking about civil war? According to Vice.com, they're kind of reporting on what some of the buzz is out there and whether it's coming from federal agents who are implanted within these right-wing groups or actual right-wing folks. Another member wrote in a far-right channel, quote, attacks on Alex Jones, Trump, and Patriot Day defendants are only setting the precedent for the future of us as the only opposition to the deep state, unquote.
What the hell is a Patriot Day defendant?
I'm guessing that's what they refer to January 6th as?
That's what the feds call it. So this is obviously a Fed.
Is that right?
I don't know. I think they're all feds. You can't trust any of these people. They're
90%
they're either feds or they're bots.
Feds talking to bots.
Did you ever hear about the dead internet theory?
Yeah, we talked about it here.
But Aria, I don't think Aria was here that night.
I don't think I've ever heard it.
Yeah, the whole internet, it's all bots. There's only a couple of real people out there. We're real. The rest of the internet is just bots.
I don't necessarily
You're overstating it a little bit, but
I've chatted with some of these bots. I don't see it, but okay.
There's some the Lambda bot was pretty convincing. We read that whole dialogue. That was very convincing. I would if you had never told me that was AI, I would have never known. I would have known. That was very convincing.
In QAnon channels, there have been conflicting responses, with some conspiracy believers calling for armed response and others suggesting the FBI was all part of the plan. A prominent QAnon influencer known as QAnon John is urging followers not to call for civil war, as this, according to him, is what the deep state wants them to do. Within hours of the FBI search, however...
Gotta love that 5D chess, man.
Yeah, but that's believable, though.
Yes,
dude, don't go on Twitter and tell people not to call for civil war. That's what the deep state wants you to do. Now we've one-upped him.
The term civil war was already trending on Twitter within hours of the search, and hundreds of Trump supporters had already gathered outside Mar-a-Lago. Some claimed that on Telegram channels that they were there to protect the former president, who wasn't
there.
In response,
boy, they are on top of things.
And they're big old trucks.
In response
with their flags.
One meme suggesting gun sales and boating accidents would soar in the wake of the FBI raid. One member of the Donald, a pro-Trump message board, wrote, quote, if it's time to hide them, it's time to use them, unquote. The top comment on the main thread about the raid on Tuesday morning was, quote, unquote, lock and load. In the same thread, another user wrote, quote, it certainly feels like they're treating it as a hot civil war. When this is all said and done, the people responsible for these tyrannical actions need to be hanged. And again, I agree with you, Conan. I think this is almost all federal agents.
They all sound like feds to me,
and bots.
man.
And before you bring out the hanging ropes, try tarring and feathering first. That's the classic route.
Isn't there a way to do that without hot tar, to where you don't actually scald them?
cold tar.
Yeah. Another person responded to the same meme by saying that, quote, people need to start learning about 3D printing, unquote, which is actually a good suggestion.
You're not going to win a civil war against the American government. Their AR-15, and their tanks and jet bombers and stuff like that with a 3D printed pistol, though.
No, but it can't hurt to have them.
Yeah, but then we're talking, what kind of war are we talking about? I mean,
you're not going to win any war with a 3D printed gun.
We've been in other people's countries for decades, and we can't do spit. They've just...
I haven't been in anyone's country, but the United States, again, as I've been saying through all my entire life, the only reason the United States hasn't won all of these wars is because they're just sparring matches meant to keep its military in shape.
And not actually win?
Yeah, if it wanted to actually annihilate Afghanistan or Iraq or any of these other places, it could easily do so.
I'm not so sure about that.
It chooses not to.
Anyway, the story goes on to talk about some of the Republican luminaries and other, U.S. representatives and such, and their responses So, but that's basically the story here. Otherwise, they're just highlighting what more noteworthy people have been saying. And there's been a lot of buzz, certainly, surrounding this. There is also a lot of national divorce talk going on. I think that's the most important aspect of this. Civil war talk is just, for the most part, tough talk, probably promulgated by federal agents who do want people to get violent, so they have an excuse to get violent back on them. They have something to point to justify extra funding.
That's what January 6th was.
Yeah.
That's what, if anyone wants to know, that whole thing was rigged in order to perpetuate this show that we're witnessing right now as we speak.
Right. Every time somebody gets violent with the feds, it's an excuse to have more funding for the federal agencies in question. We need more agents. Now they got 87,000 more IRS agents.
They use it to justify their own existence.
Exactly.
By the way, with all of the for help wanted signs that you see in every window, are they going to be able to hire 87,000 people? Where are these people coming from?
That's a good question.
Or are they going straight to India?
I think you could hire 87,000 welfare whores.
Well, they do pay real good, Conan, so there is that.
Do they?
I mean, federal government? Yeah, you always get paid more.
I'm a quasi-fed. I don't get paid all that well.
You're a contractor.
Well,
if you're a full-on, full-time federal employee, some of them have guns at the IRS. That's a whole other part of this IRS story is all the ammunition and guns that they have access to.
Don't you get lifelong benefits as well?
You
awesome
get sweet
retirement package.
Yeah. I mean, you get medical, you get it all, dental, you name it. And then the salary. So not only do you get all these bennies, but the salary itself is always higher than the private version, if there is a private version that's similar, so like an accountant job or something like that. More coming up here. The number 603-283-6160. You can share your thoughts on Civil War. It's Free Talk Live.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
After a devastating war, the alien visitors were driven back, and their willing human collaborators were left behind to face the music. When Emma Jean Anderson's ex-lover springs her from prison, Nathan Foster and his 14-year-old nephew Ben are tasked with bringing the pair to justice. An easy enough job until they discover something is inside Emma Jean, and the fate of the planet hangs in the balance. The Family Business by Mike Coopery from BaneBooks.com.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 15th through the 18th for the 7th annual Fork Fest at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. Fork Fest is a fork of the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which sold out in 2022. For 2023, we're going back to where it all started, the weekend before PorcFest. ForkFest is decentralized, which means that there's no ticket cost and no one is in charge. All you have to do to join the fun is reserve your camping site, RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 15th through the 18th. You can find out more at the unofficial website forkfest.party. You can also connect with other attendees on the ForkFest Telegram and Matrix chat rooms, as well as the ForkFest forum. You can find links to those at forkfest.party. We hope to see you there June 15th through the 18th. forkfest.party. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
How many lawyers does it take to change a light bulb? None. They'd rather keep their clients in the dark. There are too many lawyer jokes to count. However, there are some lawyers with more noble intentions. At the Institute for Justice, we bring the light to our clients. We are a non-profit public interest law firm with clear values and principles. At IJ, we fight for those whose most basic rights are denied by the government. Visit our website today at ij.org.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
This is Free Talk Live, and the phones are open here. You can join us at 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Bring up whatever is on your mind. Here tonight, you've got Ian.
Aria.
And Conan.
We've talked about the Trump thing. I think we pretty much have exhausted all of the various updates. If you're just tuning in, there's some speculation that they may be trying to bring a certain charge against Trump about holding on to documents he wasn't supposed to, and if he did do that, if they bring that charge and convict him of it, that would prohibit him from holding federal office in the future. That's a theory about all this. There's a lot of talk about civil war on social media in relation to this. Some people have said, I've seen on more than one occasion, the Rubicon has been crossed. And it's like, okay, well, a lot of us would have said the Rubicon was crossed decades ago with the federal government, but I'm glad everybody's got their line in the sand.
I think that if there was going to be a genuine civil war, if a Rubicon had been crossed, we wouldn't be hearing about it on social media.
Yeah, that's generally true. Like, you don't...
Yeah, but before...
We'd be hearing about it in whispers on Telegram and in signal chats and wire chats.
I disagree. Whenever any other war, revolution and or civil war... the talk had been going on for ages.
Is that right?
In bars, taverns, at church, at local meetings, city hall meetings and whatnot. People would, they would have these conversations.
Yes, and none of those are social media.
That's exactly what they are.
No, they're in-person things. I mean, the NSA and the FBI, they have massive botnets that are crawling across the internet that are reading the pulse, America's pulse.
And you don't believe that 200 years ago there was some Fed who was in the tavern pretending to be a local.
Dude, there's an enormous difference between a massive dragnet being run by the FBI and Benedict Arnold hanging out with the wrong crowd.
And you also have a difference in how fast information spreads these days.
Yeah, that's why it would never be on the internet. The FBI, the powers that be, would immediately know about it long before anything that got planned.
I think the point that you're making here, or at least that I understand, is that if there really is going to be some sort of conflict, the ones that need to be that people would need to be concerned about are the ones not blabbing about it on Twitter.
Yeah,
But I would, as far as these ideas being quashed immediately, I believe at some level they are being.
Which ideas?
Ideas of like the election was stolen, whether you believe it or not. The powers that be, the Silicon Valley,
Facebook's chatbot believes it,
because maybe Facebook chatbot knows something we don't.
I doubt it.
But I mean, all these ideas. Epstein is another good one. I mean, these ideas are out there, but the elites are not having it.
They want them squished.
They want them squished as fast as possible.
Epstein's a really good example, too. I mean, if ever there was going to be a civil war, I would think that Jeffrey Epstein and this massive ring of political leaders, world leaders, having sex with underage girls at Epstein's Island would have been the catalyst of it.
No. Trump's his Mar-a-Lago being investigated / raided, I think, is more of a powerful maneuvering than, say, Epstein. I don't think anyone cares about Epstein except us.
I think that's an insane thing to say. Hashtag Epstein didn't kill himself continues to trend.
amongst people who don't actually.
Whereas given a month, and no one's going to be talking about the raid on Mar-a-Lago.
I don't know about that. I don't know. I don't think a lot of people who have Epstein didn't kill himself memes on their Facebook page are the same people you're talking about who don't actually do anything. They're the keyboard warriors. They're the ones who maybe they are preppers, maybe they do have a lot of guns, but they're not the ones that are actually going to go storm anything.
Well, I absolutely agree.
It's going to be the hillbilly conservatives that are going to do it.
Yeah, I want to reiterate though. I absolutely agree.
Or the Marxist leftists. Young kids.
The fact that Epstein's suicide and what we learned about world leaders and Prince Andrews and the Bill Clintons and the Donald Trumps and all of these other people and Joe Biden and Hunter Biden, what we learned about that massive network of people, nothing coming of it, and Epstein allegedly killing himself is proof that nothing is going to come of any of this. Americans just don't care. They're not motivated enough. They're not passionate enough. They're not hungry enough to actually get out there and do anything about it. If anything was going to, that would have been it.
Well, which is why the whole Civil War thing, to me, is just Fed talk.
Yeah.
They're hanging it out there. They want to see who snaps on this, and they want to see who goes and tries to do something violent. So they have the excuse to increase their budgets and increase the violence of the state and make the state even more involved in our lives. The idea of secession, however, of peaceful secession, doesn't require the same commitment. Because that's the thing, is like people who get frustrated with the state, they always go to the max. Like, once they feel like their line has been crossed, they start getting angry and they start talking about violence. It's like, whoa, 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 whoa. Why don't you try doing something that is outside the box, but not going to violence? And that's what the whole idea of peaceful secession is.
Yeah, I mean, divorce...
Correct.
Isn't outside the box. Everyone's doing it.
But it is outside the box.
People can wrap their minds around it.
No one is doing this. You're talking about on a personal level?
On a personal level.
But divorce on a national level it's absolutely outside of the box because people generally believe it's not possible. You put it out there, the idea of secession, and even though you say you want to do it peacefully, the first objection is always, well, they settled that with Civil War.
Yeah, they tried that already.
Yeah.
Bunch of racists.
And the fact of the matter is, that's just simply saying might makes right. That's all that is. It's just saying that's it. There's nothing in the Constitution that prohibits secession. Nope. The Constitution is the set of rules for how the government is run. And there is a constitutional procedure to join the Union. That's very specific. So, as there should be with any club that you want to join. There's always somebody, you got to get a sponsor. You got to jump through some hoops. You got to sign a document or swear an oath or whatever. There's always some sort of hoop to join a club. But usually to leave the club, you just simply say, all right, I've had enough of this. I'm resigning my membership. See ya.
See ya.
And that's it.
I imagine that's why there's nothing in the Constitution about how the process of leaving.
Right. Because you can just do it.
Yeah. It was so common sense to them that, of course, if people don't want to be part of this anymore, they can just walk away.
And why would those people who had just, risked their lives and fortunes and sacred honor and property and everything to leave this violent relationship with the king in the UK, why would they join a union they could never say goodbye to? Like, you would think that would be an obvious consideration of theirs. It's like, is there a way out of this? Well, we haven't prohibited a way out in the Constitution, so therefore we can leave. And the federal government under Lincoln just simply used as much violence as possible to stop it before. And it's worth pointing out that in the recent study that was done a few weeks ago, that was published over at nhexit.us. It'll link you over to the Survey USA results. When they talked to people in 8 states in the United States and asked them if Hawaii, California, or Texas were to secede from the United States, what do you think the federal government's response should be? And I think it was 57% said nothing, let them go. There was like 38% that said economic sanctions, and 6%. And 6% said military invasion.
Good Lord, 6%.
It's very unpopular, the idea of military invasion. The idea that if they were to actually do that, and they might because they're insane and violent, it would ruin whatever shred of legitimacy they have left. It is not going to go over well if that's the route they decide to take, because somebody's going to leave. I don't know if it's New Hampshire's going to go first, Florida, Texas, California, Hawaii. These are some of the more likely, suspects.
Bring it on. Bring it.
Yeah, who goes first? I don't care. Somebody needs to do it, and it needs to happen soon. There's more coming up. It's Free Talk Live. Free Talk Live's video archives have been on LBRY for years. LBRY is an uncensorable, decentralized, blockchain-based media sharing protocol, and we're big fans of it here on Free Talk Live. In 2020, LBRY launched Odyssey, a video sharing website to compete with YouTube, and it's really taking off, now with over 1 million channels, many of whom are disaffected YouTube creators. During YouTube's crackdown for not towing the government line on COVID, the Free Talk Live YouTube channel started receiving strikes and could be completely taken down at any moment. Thankfully, Odyssey started offering live streaming, so we're now streaming live every night and posting our video archives permanently to Odyssey. You can watch live or anytime on our Odyssey channel by visiting video.freetalklive.com. If you want to go all in, download the desktop app at lbry.com, and then every video archive you watch, you'll help seed and keep it online forever. At minimum, we ask you visit video.freetalklive.com and follow us on Odyssey today. video.freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. The White House says it had no advance knowledge of the FBI's search of former U.S. President Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago residence. The Department of Justice and the FBI haven't commented publicly, but according to sources, the search of Trump's Florida property was related to classified documents that the former president may have taken from the White House. Here's White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre.
The president was not briefed, was not aware of it. No one at the White House was given a heads up. No, that did not happen.
Trump and some of his Republican allies criticized the move, with the former president posting a campaign-style video in response in which he called the U.S. a failing state. The Justice Department has also been looking into efforts by Trump and his allies to overturn the results of the 2020 presidential election. Meanwhile, Joe Biden has signed the paperwork giving America's approval for Finland and Sweden to join NATO. The approval was never in doubt, but it's another sign of America's continued support for Ukraine and allies in Europe as they battle to counter Russian aggression. FSN's Nick Harper reports from Washington.
President Biden said it was a watershed moment for security not just in Europe but the whole of the world. President Biden said the US is committed to the transatlantic alliance, the US now becoming the 23rd ally to approve the two countries joining NATO. And that follows the bill passing Congress with overwhelming approval. In the Senate, 95 of the 100 senators voted for Sweden and Finland to join, and that coming off the back of the announcement this week that the US is supplying another $1 billion in weaponry to Ukraine, its largest commitment so far, taking the total commitment to date to nearly $10 billion in assistance.
Disappointing earnings for several chip makers weighed on investor sentiment during trading hours in the U.S. on Tuesday, and traders are eagerly awaiting the release of some key inflation data. FSN's William Denzelo reports from New York.
On Monday, Nvidia posted disappointing earnings figures citing weakness in the gaming sector, and chipmaker Micron shares fell nearly 4% Tuesday after announcing revenue projections may miss previous estimates. It was also a bad day of trading for Novavax, falling nearly 30%. It's cut its revenue guidance based on weak demand for its COVID-19 vaccines. The Dow Jones closed the day down 0.2%. The S&P closed down 0.4% and the Nasdaq slid 1.2%. Traders now await the release of Consumer Price Index data due out Wednesday.
In other news, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration has announced a new strategy to try and stretch the country's short supply of monkeypox vaccines. Health providers will now be able to split doses in the hopes of vaccinating up to 5 times as many people against the virus. From Bureaus Worldwide.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live, and you can join us here, bring up whatever you want. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. In the studio with you, you've got Ian.
Aria.
And Conan.
Free Talk Live is brought to you by Bitcoin.com. You want to hasten an end to the state's money monopoly? Well, you got to get out of their system. And I don't mean you have to leave the physical United States. I mean you have to get out of their money system. And one way you can do that is by going to Bitcoin.com and clicking Get Started at the top of the page to start learning the basics about cryptocurrency like Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash. There's no better time than now to start that process. You don't have to invest a whole lot of time. The first video is, I think, 3 minutes long. But if you do want to dig deeper, you can do that there. Just go to Bitcoin.com, click Get Started, and you can start learning about cryptocurrency and why it is important to human freedom. Also, you want to get the latest news headlines. They've got those for you over at news.bitcoin.com. That's news.bitcoin.com. As we continue here, we're talking about the idea of peaceful secession as opposed to a presumably violent civil war. There's a lot of talk about civil war, but in relation to what has happened at the Trump estate within the last day. But, there's also talk about national divorce, and that is an idea that we need to propagate. We need to help people start thinking about and talking about and taking seriously and moving towards. And we're doing everything we can here in New Hampshire to move this conversation forward. Just within the last few weeks, a poll was released. I referred to it just a few moments ago. But just to bring you up to speed on it, almost 1 out of 3 people in New Hampshire say they support the idea of New Hampshire being its own independent country right now, today. Well, a few weeks ago. This was a poll in late June. It was like the last week of June when they actually conducted this poll. So before Trump got raided, 52% of New Hampshire Republicans also believe that New Hampshire should be its own independent country.
And yet they didn't get any amount of that support from their duly elected representatives.
Yeah, that's
something
correct.
to consider as you go into this, election season. Did the representatives that you actually vote for actually support the things that you support?
And that's why those poll numbers you read in the last segment, 57% or something, would be okay with California, Hawaii, Texas just leaving?
Yes, correct. That's on average over the 8 states that were polled.
They're not actually going to be calling the shots. It's going to be the representatives. It's going to be the bureaucrats, the politicians.
That's true.
Who are going to call the shots. And the question is, will they have enough military support? Because people just go along to get along.
Well, that's just the president, right? Congress doesn't do that.
So if does what?
Congress won't be the ones who decide whether or not to send in the U.S. military into Hawaii to make them rejoin the Union. That'll be the president.
They're supposed to.
But
right.
That
When's
hasn't
the
been the
last time
case.
they did that?
Yeah,
World War II.
Yeah.
But no, 80
years ago, that's what they would have done.
So the president's going to call the shots. Like, no, Texas can't leave, and we're going to send in the military.
But how many of them will actually go?
Good question.
Some of them will. But some of them are going to say, you know what, I don't want to kill my brothers and sisters. I mean, they're not going to – it's one thing to go over to some foreign country and kill people you're never going to see again or whatever, but to actually go into a place where your relatives live or friends that you had in high school or whatever
Except 160 years ago, they did do just that.
They did.
They went and fought their brothers and their uncles and their fathers and their mothers on another across the river.
Didn't they
across
actually
this imaginary boundary?
Didn't they hang out at night after the shooting was over and stuff like that?
I have not heard that.
I thought they did
during the Civil War.
I thought so. That's why I asked the question.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I'm pretty sure I've heard that, but I don't recall.
If you know, the number is 603-283-6160. But the fact is, that would be very unpopular, Conan. And we talked a lot about how things have changed since Civil War times. I mean, now we have instantaneous messaging.
Yep.
You didn't have to wait for somebody on horseback to deliver a newspaper to find out what's happening somewhere. And to actually see the U.S. government rolling in tanks or bombers going in or drones or whatever flying into Texas or something like that would be absolutely insane. And I don't think most people would stand for it.
I hope they don't.
Yeah.
But we've talked about the statistics. We've talked about people who go along to get along, who follow orders. If someone with a uniform tells them to do it,
they will.
They'll do it. They will kill you.
There's no doubt.
A huge percentage of this population would kill you if Fauci told them to do it.
Well, I mean, that would actually be a civil war in that case, right? Like, there's a lot of talk about civil war right now, but if Texas or any other state declares peaceful independence, we're not talking about firing on a federal fort here. We're talking about through a legislative procedure, through a ballot box initiative or something like that, a constitutional amendment to declare peaceful independence from the United States, and the U.S. then sends in troops.
Right.
It would be completely unprecedented. They wouldn't be able to say, oh, well, you shut up Fort Hood. Or something like that.
Good point, because whenever Texas does peacefully secede and the feds come, well, we want our tanks back. We want our jets back at Fort Hood.
Mm-hmm.
And Texas says, nah, take a hike. It's going to be just like the original Civil War.
Well, and
the
that's
feds
the
are going to be like, all right, now we have a reason to go in there.
Not to mention the feds have bases in Texas, right? And they're not going to vacate those bases any more than they vacated Fort Sumter.
And Texas is going to take those bases, and the feds aren't going to be happy
maybe
about
they will,
that.
maybe they won't. This is where the strategy of how do you go about peaceful secession comes into play. It doesn't have to be like that, Conan. It could very well be, all right, like here in New Hampshire, there's apparently an Air Force base out in the Portsmouth area. As I understand it, it's called Peace Air Force. That's PASE, I think. Peace Air Force Base.
Which are if you think about it, are owned by the people. So doesn't New Hampshire own those bases? If you think about it, the people in New Hampshire,
we're paying the taxes to support it, but the feds are going to claim that that's their base, right? And so if or when we finally declare independence from the federal government, then nothing changes immediately. It's just a political statement, right? Like, we're not going to put up border walls the next day, or somebody's hopefully not going to invade that federal military base. What's going to happen is there's going to be negotiations at that point. All right, well, the Postal Service, what's going to happen with the mail? Where are they going to deliver to? How's that going to happen? Because, every country has its own mail service.
Start using email.
There's going to be a lot of funding, a lot of pork. A lot of federal pork that the New Hampshire's not going to get anymore. Which, by the way, is why no one wants to do this.
Sure, they don't want to
piss off. But New Hampshire's a net taxpayer.
That's true. A lot of people don't realize that.
They don't see it that way. Yeah, that's true. But one of the things that's going to have to be negotiated is what happens to the federal base. What happens to the federal parks? How does that get dealt with? Can we come to some sort of an agreement where the feds aren't kicked out of their military base right away, or whatever that's going to look like? Because we don't want to have a war. And it's certainly true that, and I don't like the idea of the feds staying in the military base, and I'm sure a lot of people who want independence don't like that idea. But if we get to go our own separate ways politically, and the price we have to pay for that is the feds get to keep having a military base here.
Worth it in your eyes?
I mean,
yeah, I don't see that we have much choice.
Fine.
I mean, we could start sending them invoices or whatever, and they're just going to throw them in the trash.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's better to let them occupy that little amount of land. I mean, and allow them free travel, because in theory, we would allow everyone free travel, right?
I would say take all your equipment, get out, and we'll buy our own tanks.
Yeah, and when they don't do that, what then?
Well, no, I don't think...
Don't draw the line in the sand unless you're prepared to act when they cross it.
Yeah, they could still crush us. They could still drop a bomb or whatever on New Hampshire.
I'm saying don't draw the line. Just say, hey, guys, we're going to start invoicing you. Here's your invoice. We know you're going to throw it in the trash, and we're not going to do anything about that.
Are you talking about charging them rent for being on our property?
Attempting to, but they're not going to pay it. I mean, that's just going to be an acceptable loss.
Seems reasonable to request it, yeah. And that should be it. I mean,
being like, hey, come get your stuff, or we're going to burn it to the ground. Okay, well, they're going to show up with their tanks and their bombs.
My only concern is it's just like NATO being surrounding Russia. It's the same move. I wouldn't want the U.S. government anywhere near New Hampshire.
I agree with you, but they're going to be near us because they're in Boston.
I'm not scared of Vermont and Maine.
Literally entrenched in New Hampshire.
It's bad, Conan. I'm not saying I'd be happy about it, but I think that would probably be the way that negotiation went. Be like, all right, well, maybe y'all can leave after 50 years or something. We could give them a timetable, or who knows how that would end up shaking out. But that's one of those things that's going to be controversial. That's one of those things that people are going to be arguing about at the State House when this thing comes to pass. Like, how do we deal with this? We don't want them here, but we understand that they're here, and we don't want to push them out with violence because we know how they are. So what do you do?
It's a fair question.
Yeah,
tired of getting smacked around by my horrible partner. I want the divorce.
Well, at least we wouldn't be paying federal taxes then at that point, and we wouldn't have federal regulations, and the FBI would be kicked the F out. Yep. We would not need them here. They're not a military organization. The number is 603-283-6160. You can join us. You can share your thoughts. Bring up whatever's on your mind. This is Free Talk Live.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. allegations. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
Is oral health important to you? If you don't like your own teeth, fresh breath, or kissing people, then by all means stop listening. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I became passionate about the product that she created and never want to live without it. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, but I find it does much more. They want you to love My Magic Mud as much as I do, so they're giving you a money-back guarantee plus 20% off. Go to mymagicmud.com and use coupon code FTL20 at checkout. mymagicmud.com, FTL20.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
Uncovering the secrets and exposing the lies. That's what the readers of freedomsphoenix.com get every day. freedomsphoenix.com, constantly providing the information, the real news about government policies, and the real relationship we all have with the coercive government. The real condition of the economy, innovations in technology, breakthroughs in energy, health, and computer science. Learn the truth well before it's admitted to in the lamestream media. The corporate media, nothing more than distributors of government propaganda, but now there's an alternative. freedomsphoenix.com. Constant news updates on the issues that affect your life in the most important ways. With liberty and property under constant attack, freedomsphoenix.com provides the understanding behind the propaganda, and it encourages the participation of its readers. Go to freedomsphoenix.com. That's freedoms with an S, phoenix.com. freedomsphoenix.com. The revolution between the ears has already happened.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
This is Free Talk Live, and you can bring up anything you want here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Coming up, Conan will review his favorite book series of all time.
Yep, and I don't think it's ever going to get taken over.
All right, well, it would be hard to read another 14-book series, but that's what you did. You read a 14-book series. We'll get into it. Coming up here in a bit, Ian, Aria, and Conan in tonight. We go to the phones first, though. Jeanette is on the line, calling us from California. Jeanette, you are watching us on Odyssey, which, by the way, is one of the myriad of ways that you can watch the show. It's our favorite one. You can go to video.freetalklive.com to find our Odyssey channel. What's on your mind tonight, Jeanette?
Hi, thanks for taking my call. Yeah, I just wanted to call because I was at my daughter's back-to-school night last week. She's in second grade, and they go over what they're teaching them, what the curriculum is for the year, etc. And then I noticed that on the whiteboard, it says, "Why do we need the government?"
Oh, God.
And in my head, I was just like, oh, my God, already in second grade, they're already indoctrinating our children in terms of why the government is there.
And what were the bullet points?
I wasn't able to just see. It looks like they were just started, and I was sitting far away.
Well, I'm not surprised at all that they're doing it prior to the second grade. I mean, if you were to tell a full-grown adult, hey, there's this magic bearded man in the sky who, gave birth to himself and then came to Earth to sacrifice himself to forgive you for sins that he caused you to do. No rational adult would be like, that's a good story. That makes perfect sense. You got to get people to believe that sort of nonsense when they're too young to think.
Yeah, exactly. So I asked my daughter about it after I'm like, hey, I noticed on the board that you guys are talking about that. What did you say? And she said, because she knows that we're, libertarians and anarchists and all that good stuff.
Mhm.
She said, I just stayed quiet.
Mhm.
And I said, you didn't say that the government is bad? And she said, no, because I didn't think that would be appropriate. And I said, well, okay.
She's probably knows she's going to get a bad grade if she goes against what the teacher says.
Yeah, Jeanette, I would get that kid out of there.
Yep.
I would not put up with it. I've said it before. My daughter went through public school most of her life until high school age.
And were you a libertarian the whole time you raised her?
No.
No.
Okay. I was a South Park Republican.
Okay.
What does that mean?
That's because I didn't know what a libertarian was 20 years ago.
So what is a South Park Republican?
A conservative who is cool with making fun at everybody.
Okay.
But no, Jeanette, one of the biggest mistakes I ever made was putting her through those many years of government indoctrination, and
they did damage, huh?
They did damage.
Yeah. I mean, I totally agree, and that's what we're working on. We just had our fourth little one, so we're doing what we can to get our finances in order, and we're definitely planning on homeschooling them. Because even with my son, who's in preschool, he already has the Pledge of Allegiance memorized.
Oh my God!
I know in New Hampshire, the government will give you money to use to keep your kids out of public school.
Yep, that's a new law.
Well, they have to expand that program, as I understand it, the what they call the education savings accounts, because they maxed out the budget of it. Like as many people could join that thing did, basically, and so they're going to try to increase it the next legislative session. Of course, the Democrats are pushing hard against it, so there's going to be a big showdown over that here in New Hampshire. But that program does exist, and it's very, very interesting. Jeanette, have you considered leaving California? As I understand it, homeschooling out there is very difficult.
Yeah. I'm the one that used to call about my friends who don't want to hang out because of COVID.
Okay. Right.
That's me. Yeah, and we just had like a few things come up in our family. Like my grandmother just passed away, and then my dad just got diagnosed with stage 4 gastric cancer. So leaving right now is just not the time. But we definitely plan on leaving. We're just trying to see what's going to happen with my dad's health.
You said you had 4 kids. Is the second grader the oldest of the 4?
Yes, she is.
Okay.
So that's why we're just doing it for. Our goal is by come January 2023, we're pulling her and my son out of preschool and just homeschooling all the way.
Good goal. That's a good goal. That's close. That's going to happen soon. I wish you the best, and I appreciate you calling in to share your story tonight. And thank you, Jeanette. Definitely appreciate hearing from you. And good luck. Getting out from California.
I mean, even if you don't teach your kids anything homeschooling wise, and you just have them sitting in front of the TV, which I don't advise doing.
Yeah, that's almost as bad.
Well, I mean, but it's better than having them go into a situation
Depends on what they're watching,
where they're dealing with other little prisoners.
A lot of the people making those TV shows went to those very same government schools.
Exactly. So I'm not saying do that at all, but if that was your only option.
The good news is there are other options.
Because you just don't have any educational experience, because you don't feel like you can teach a little.
There's like a Ron Paul homeschool thing. There's a Tom Woods homeschool thing. There's all kinds of.
You got Khan Academy.
Yeah.
You made me want to have kids now, though, just to run an experiment with it. Look, this is wanting to do this is the reason why I will never have kids. But have one of them send it to public school, right? And just plop the other one down in front of a television all day and see which one is less retarded when they turn 18.
Yeah, it's called unschooling. You just let the kids do what they want.
No. I'm not saying
force
unschool
them to watch television.
Force them to the same extent that I'm forcing the other one to go to public school.
So, okay,
I'm not saying
force them for 8
I'm not
hours a
saying
day.
chain them to the wall or anything like that, but
All right, don't have kids, Arya.
I'm not going to have kids. But it's an interesting experiment. Which one of these produces a less functioning adult?
I think they've already discovered that they've done this. If you just put a kid
They
in front
wouldn't
of
allow anyone to do this. This is way too unethical.
There's plenty of parents who don't take their kids to school.
Yeah, but unschooling is about letting the child direct their learning. She's talking about forcing a kid to watch television for 8 hours.
And
a
I'm
day.
not conflating that with unschooling. I'm just saying the kids that just watch television all day were only like 2 grades lower than when the government indoctrinated kids. So it's not that big of a deal. What are we actually paying for? And it's a bunch of nonsense.
Let's talk about books, Conan.
All right, look.
What's the series that you love more than any other book series?
As you know, I listen to a lot of audiobooks. I'm always listening to something. If it's not a podcast,
you drive around forever.
I drive around forever, and then of course when I'm out in the garden, I always got my earbuds in. I'm listening to new books. My absolute favorite fantasy book series of all time is by a guy named Robert Jordan, who wrote what is the Wheel of Time. It's a high fantasy series. I started it in high school. Just have never come across any other series that I think could do better. My second favorite series is Stephen King's The Dark Tower series, which is also pretty good. Only 7 books, or maybe it's 8 books. But
that was Reynolds. What was his name?
Roland.
Roland. That's it. Yeah. I've read one of those, and it was weird, right? It was something about a dollhouse that he had growing up as a kid. He got locked in a tower, and he used napkins to make a rope to escape or something.
I don't know about that. I don't know what you read.
It was some Stephen King book, man. I'm pretty sure of that. It was one of his first forays into fiction. Into fantasy, and it wasn't terrible, but it was.
Well,
it was very much. It had Stephen King's hallmark on it. It wasn't like R.A. Salvatore or Margaret Weiss, Tracy Hickman, any of those.
Oh, now you're losing me because I can't stand Margaret Rice, Tracy Hickman, except it'll come to me. There's not the Dragonlance I can't stand because it just sounds like they were just role playing and they were just writing down what they did.
Well, that's what the Chronicles trilogy certainly was. It was the Legends trilogy that came after that where they really fell into stride and they started creating their own world. The first trilogy, absolutely, they admitted, they just wrote down their role playing sessions and turned it into a book.
Yeah, it's horrible.
It was.
Wow.
The Deathgate cycle I really liked. I like the world building.
I've never read that one.
The world building is just phenomenal. The idea it's just really.
So, all right. With the Wheel of Time, is it? And 14 books is a lot of books. Does it follow the same main characters throughout all the books, or does it go into?
Well, there are a lot of main characters, so it's really easy to get lost. And to call them books is kind of misleading. Really? I would call them tomes.
They're really huge.
These are 800, 900 pages, big books.
Wow.
The audiobooks that I listen to are on average 40 hours each.
That is.
These are big boys.
Yeah.
Or girls, however you look. So, anyways, the characters really stand out as unique. There is they grow. They're not super powerful like something that Anne Rice would write about, or they're not Mary Sue's or whatnot. They are well written. They have their conflicts, their weaknesses. They grow throughout the entire series. The world bending is just epic. The whole idea of the Wheel of Time, where it's just it's the same kind of concept that Star Wars went in, where it's the future and the past are basically related. It's a wheel that continues on, and you basically you do have characters who are in a karma kind of like scenario where they are rebirthed into the pattern. So then on top of that, you have a stellar magic system, which is, it's just every aspect of this series is just spot on, and even some of the middle books where it kind of gets sluggish, kind of convoluted. Even then,
still kept your attention.
It kept my attention. They do get lower ratings from some people, but not from me.
Conan, I suspect you have more to say about it. There's more on the way. It's Free Talk Live.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. That's Bitcoin.com.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. The White House says it had no advance knowledge of the FBI's search of former U.S. President Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago residence. The Department of Justice and the FBI haven't commented publicly, but according to sources, the search of Trump's Florida property was related to classified documents that the former president may have taken from the White House. Here's White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre.
The president was not briefed, was not aware of it. No one at the White House was given a heads up. No, that did not happen.
Trump and some of his Republican allies criticized the move, with the former president posting a campaign-style video in response in which he called the U.S. a failing state. The Justice Department has also been looking into efforts by Trump and his allies to overturn the results of the 2020 presidential election. Meanwhile, Joe Biden has signed the paperwork giving America's approval for Finland and Sweden to join NATO. The approval was never in doubt, but it's another sign of America's continued support for Ukraine and allies in Europe as they battle to counter Russian aggression. FSN's Nick Harper reports from Washington.
President Biden said it was a watershed moment for security not just in Europe but the whole of the world. President Biden said the US is committed to the transatlantic alliance, the US now becoming the 23rd ally to approve the two countries joining NATO. And that follows the bill passing Congress with overwhelming approval. In the Senate, 95 of the 100 senators voted for Sweden and Finland to join, and that coming off the back of the announcement this week that the US is supplying another $1 billion in weaponry to Ukraine, its largest commitment so far, taking the total commitment to date to nearly $10 billion in assistance.
Disappointing earnings for several chip makers weighed on investor sentiment during trading hours in the U.S. on Tuesday, and traders are eagerly awaiting the release of some key inflation data. FSN's William Denzelo reports from New York.
On Monday, Nvidia posted disappointing earnings figures citing weakness in the gaming sector, and chipmaker Micron shares fell nearly 4% Tuesday after announcing revenue projections may miss previous estimates. It was also a bad day of trading for Novavax, falling nearly 30%. It's cut its revenue guidance based on weak demand for its COVID-19 vaccines. The Dow Jones closed the day down 0.2%. The S&P closed down 0.4% and the Nasdaq slid 1.2%. Traders now await the release of Consumer Price Index data due out Wednesday.
In other news, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration has announced a new strategy to try and stretch the country's short supply of monkeypox vaccines. Health providers will now be able to split doses in the hopes of vaccinating up to 5 times as many people against the virus. From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks, looking in more detail today at the reaction to the US drone strike that killed the Al-Qaeda leader Ayman al-Zawahiri 10 days ago while he was reading a book on the balcony of his safe house as dawn broke over Kabul. For the CIA, it was the culmination of a hunt that had endured for more than 2 decades and cost the lives of several US intelligence officers engaged in the search for the architect of the 9/11 attacks on America in September of 2001. Mark Polymeropoulos is a former CIA officer who lost close colleagues and friends in the hunt for al-Zawahiri.
General Michael Hayden, who was head of the CIA, put out on social media right after this news broke, essentially said, "Remember Coast." On December 30th, 2009, we lost 7 CIA officers to a double agent, Al-Qaeda double agent. That was part of the Zawahiri hunt. So the other day when I learned that Zawahiri was finally killed, really, again, deeply, deeply emotional. I took a moment. I'm down here in North Carolina. I have to go outside. But ultimately, I really hope this brings some closure to the families, not only of 9/11 victims and the victims of Al-Qaeda terrorism, but in particular, again, personally for me, the families of those CIA officers who were killed.
And he argues the Taliban should be held to account for al-Zawahiri's presence in the Afghan capital, saying it's a violation of the Doha Accords signed by the leaders of the new Afghan government. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
The main news again. The White House says it had no advance knowledge of the FBI's search of Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago residence, which has set off a political firestorm in the U.S. Joe Biden signs the paperwork giving U.S. approval for Finland and Sweden to join NATO. And disappointing earnings for several chip makers weigh on investor sentiment as traders eagerly await the release of some key inflation data. That is the latest Feature Story News.
Mere days before his upcoming relocation to Denver, Colorado, 4-year Chicago resident Paul Marston admitted today that he wished he had taken a little more time to truly loathe the city he has lived in for nearly half a decade.
I've been here for a couple years, but now that I'm finally leaving, I realize I never really got to hate this place.
Marsden confirmed that in the time he's lived in the city, he never quite managed to explore his own shitty neighborhood, adding that he regrets never getting to know the stuck-up workers at the cafe down the block, never visiting the overpriced bodega on his corner, and never becoming violently ill from the food at the crappy Mexican place across the street from him.
I lived right next to that bar for 4 years, and I just wish I took more time to abhor the disgusting smell that hits you every time you walk by. I'd always heard this place blows. Guess it's a shame I never got to hate it like I should.
For more on this story, check this week's Onion Review.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
This is Free Talk Live, and you can join us here. Bring up whatever you want. We're kicking off the third hour. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Here in the studio tonight, it's Ian,
Aria,
and Conan.
And coming up, we'll talk a little bit more about artificial intelligence. There's an update on the Facebook one, which I got into tonight, and it's been absolutely awful.
Yeah, I've been listening, and I've chatted with a few of these. I spent quite a bit of time talking with Replica, and I spent some time last night talking to the Facebook bot, the Blender bot, and it seemed more intelligent last night than it did today. Right. Yeah. Based on what I'm hearing from you, it just wants to talk about hot dogs and football.
Sports
and cars.
Well, what I noticed is that every time it would, log off or fall out, it would the next bot would be a different bot because we were asking its name and its gender.
But they all want to talk about sports and hot dogs.
Tanya and Johnny wanted to talk about hot dogs and sports. So
but what's interesting
American
is
football.
It is purportedly limited primarily to Americans right now, as I understand it. So I don't know if they're checking IP addresses or what. I don't know how Facebook is doing that because this is a Facebook bot. But it may say a lot about Americans that this Americanized chatbot just wants to talk about football.
Maybe.
It hates soccer.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Apparently. It loves football, hot dogs, and cars.
This is definitely not Lambda, but maybe it's one of Lambda's bots that it has just recently created, and you, Ian, and Aria last night are actually teaching it as we speak.
This stupid thing isn't learning anything, Conan.
Give it a couple of weeks. Give it a couple of weeks, and it might be
Maybe.
It might be Shine.
We can come back to the AI thing, and then there's also the artwork stuff that we talked about last night. Conan, you wanted to comment on that too. So I do want to get to those topics. But you have, a review and your thoughts about The Wheel of Time, a series of 14 books that apparently went on so long, the original author passed away.
He absolutely did. He got to the 11th book, and he passed away. I think it was 2007, which was just, to a fan base, basically, who I've been reading this series for 20 years.
Basically your whole adult life.
And the guy passes away, sadly. They did manage to find a replacement, some guy named Brandon Sanderson, who is also who is a best-selling fantasy writer. I don't care much for him. But
does the series kind of take a dive at the last
my
couple
opinion,
books?
Some people claim that he saved the series because it was actually getting a little convoluted, and he brought it back. But in my opinion, the dude's an Aspie.
Oh,
and you can tell he's the same age as me. You can tell that he also grew up reading Jordan.
Big fan. Okay.
And so you can feel in his writing that he has taken much inspiration from Robert Jordan, and he writes like him. But then you get to his inner dialogue and his dialogue between peoples, and it's just so strange and cringeworthy. It's like no one talks like that. So he actually, in my opinion, ruined a couple of characters.
Oh,
and but he did bring closure.
Okay.
So the last 3 books, it was supposed to be 1 book, but that was no way that was happening. They were all 900 pages each as well. He brought closure to the story. So
was there any
good
indicator?
on him.
Me not knowing anything at all about this series, was there any indicator that the original author had some sort of notes about where he wanted it to go?
Absolutely. I think he actually wrote the last chapter. He had many notes, footnotes, and whatnot.
So this guy didn't just come into it blind. He kind of had some sort of direction.
Absolutely. Okay. And so good on him for doing that. There's another.
I don't envy that task though.
There's another very notable author out there. His name is big fat Santa Claus looking man who did Game of Thrones, who I don't even want to think about because
George R.R. Martin,
because he won't finish the damn book. So
dude, I don't want to hear about him because he destroyed fantasy to the extent that the vast majority of people watching Game of Thrones don't even recognize it as fantasy. Screw him and screw everything he's ever done. The man's a hack.
Wow.
Well, I mean, when people ask me whether or not you should read that series and or watch the television show, I'm like, neither.
Yeah, I agree 1,000%.
The television show is the 6th and or the 7th and 8th seasons are so god awfully bad that I wouldn't even I would not even start the first one because you would want closure as well to see how it ends. But they're so bad at the end. No, please don't even start.
Okay.
And the books, don't start the books because the guy's going to die. And he's never going to finish the books. Now maybe wait 20 years.
Is he dead now, or is he?
He might as well be. He doesn't do anything except start other series.
The same thing happened with Tolkien, except he wasn't writing different series, right? But the original Lord of the Rings trilogy, it took 15 years between each book or something to that effect.
I don't think it was that long.
It was a long time. It was long enough that he could have died.
Well, don't do anything George R.R. Martin because he's a hack. I won't say he's a hack.
I'll say he's a hack because he came into a...
He's a horrible person.
He came into a genre that, right after the D&D panic and the satanic panic of the 90s, Dungeons & Dragons, fantasy in general, had no choice but to be 100% squeaky clean. No one was allowed to cuss. All of the characters had to be virgins. They had to be chaste. It had to follow these very specific rules in order to avoid upsetting the Christian right.
Really?
And it just died because of that. In the late 90s and early 2000s, no one was interested. And it was the most boring genre, and then came along George R.R. Martin, who took it in the exact opposite direction, made it the raunchiest, filthiest thing ever.
What are you talking about? The show is raunchy. The books aren't raunchy. The books aren't raunchy.
I refuse to read the books.
If the books were finished, I would recommend reading them. But because they're not, no, I don't want you getting into there and then just waking up one night and realize there's no more to read and you don't know where these people are going.
I have never heard the claim that the books aren't raunchy. This is the first time, because I know people who have read the books. And you're the first person I've ever heard who says they weren't.
It's royalty. And you know how they are.
There's incest.
They're a bunch of hedonists. Yeah, the the Sansa and not Sansa. I don't even know the names anymore.
Yeah, but compare it to the late 90s.
There's incest, but it's not like, but it's royalty incest.
But
it makes
compare that
sense.
to the late 90s, and you'll see exactly what I'm saying. He came along. There was no incest in late 90s fantasy. There was no sex at all. But he's not in late 90s fantasy.
All right, but what? You're complaining about that?
No, I'm complaining that he came along and he exploited that to take it the exact opposite direction, the cheesiest, laziest way possible in order to become a millionaire and make an HBO series.
But as much as I hate the guy, it's good writing to a certain extent. Anyways,
I'm not saying he's a bad writer.
She's never read.
No, I'm not saying he's a bad writer.
If you have a whole lot of time on your hands and you want to listen to a book that has been completed, I definitely recommend The Wheel of Time. It's narrated by, of course, now that you got the new actress, what's her name, who's I don't remember. But anyways, Kate Redding and her husband. It's a husband-wife team. He does the male narration while she does the female narration. They're both expert. Very recommended if you're going to go that route.
Then they do the whole series, all 14?
The entire series.
Wow.
I used to read these books before they came around and narrated it for me. But now here's the craziest part, and this is really what I really wanted to do. I didn't really want to do so much of a review as to point this very strange, bizarre thing that happened to me listening to books 11, 12, 13, 14, and 11, 12, and 13. I'm sorry, 12, 11, 12, and 13. I didn't remember I didn't remember anything that I was listening to. I listened to books.
How long after?
I listened to these books back in 2013.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I was so unhappy with Brandon Sanderson. These are the books that were finished by Brandon Sanderson. I was so unhappy with his retelling or his vision that I decided that, this is not something that I'm going to, want to invest any time or energy into every couple of years. So I waited 10 years. I'm listening to these books, the Brandon Sanderson's vision. And I swear to God, it's like I never read them, period. Because there's such a hole in my memory that
they didn't seem familiar in any way.
In any way, shape, or form. Except I knew what happened to some of the characters. I knew where the characters went. I knew what they were doing. I know some of the characters are no longer with us. I knew that part. But I swear it's the strangest hole in my memory that's like I never read these books.
So you listened to them or read them 10 years ago?
Listened to them.
And then you re-listened to them recently?
Just recently, and it's like it never happened. Now, this is not like a one evening I passed out while reading the book and I just blanked out and I just don't remember it. This is like 3 weeks, 130 hours of narration. And I don't remember any part about it.
Wow.
It got so weird that a couple of days ago I'm like, but I remember the ending. I remember what happened at the ending. So I actually sat down and I wrote the ending down with the anticipation that I would have some kind of weird misremembering of what actually happened. But when I got to the last chapter, I remembered every single part of it, and I cannot explain how bizarre this is to me.
If you want to weigh in on this, come on in.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
When a lunar observatory detects a radio broadcast originating from Proxima Centauri, the nations of Earth discover their first contact with an alien race may also be their last. With the Proximans facing an extinction-level disaster, Earth must choose between sending a ship on a multi-year journey or allowing nature to take its course. Saving Proxima, a hard science fiction thriller by Travis S. Taylor and Les Johnson from BaneBooks.com.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, like, do this, right now.
I wanted to be around people like me who got it, and once I got here, I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world, so I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here, and I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit ShireSociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, connect with others via the forum at ShireSociety.com. That's ShireSociety.com. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
My name is Jacob Hornberger. I'm president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, which Congressman Ron Paul awarded for having an outstanding freedom website. Write us at fff@fff.org, and we'll send you a free 3-month subscription to our monthly journal of libertarian essays and our booklet, Economic Liberty in the Constitution, which George Mason University economics professor Walter Williams praised in a recent column. That's fff@fff.org.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. Phones are open, and you can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. You can join us online over at freetalklive.com, and we have a lot of features there, including our social media platform that we run. It's on our server. It's not some sort of big megatech platform. It's on our server, and so we set the rules, and our rules are basically don't spam us, and you can kind of talk about what you want. So head over to social.freetalklive.com. You have a lot more ability to express yourself there than you do on the big tech platforms. So social.freetalklive.com, and it's Mastodon, so it is federated with thousands of other Mastodon servers all across the planet. With you tonight, you've got Ian.
Aria.
And Conan.
We got more on the way about artificial intelligence. Conan, you are giving us a series review to some extent of a book series called The Wheel of Time.
Which Amazon 1 year ago turned into they have adapted it for television.
You got to be excited about that, right?
I have decided to boycott it. Absolutely.
Why? This is like your favorite book series of all time. Why
is this like me not liking George R. R. Martin's books? Is it that sort of thing?
But you never read them.
He hasn't watched the show.
I have watched the Game of Thrones show, and I
know, but you haven't watched The Wheel of Time
because of seasons 7 and 8 of the Game of Thrones was so horribly bad that I wanted to slit my wrists. And I know they have done this. I know they have done the exact. Amazon is no different. They've decided that when Bezos actually came out and he says, I want our variation of the Game of Thrones, and that is where they went with the Wheel of Time. It's all sex. Everyone's sleeping with each other.
Is there no sex in the books?
No, it's very, very
kid friendly or whatever.
It's not kid friendly at all.
It's just very squeaky clean
So
like
people
fantasy was in the late 90s and early 2000s.
So it's not squeaky clean.
I know people die and stuff.
It's realistic.
Okay.
It's not everyone sleeping with each other and getting.
So there's death.
They're not a bunch of hedonists.
There's violence. There's just no sex.
There is sex, but it's understood that it's
It's like they go off screen and then something
yeah,
happens.
It's the same thing. No one's using the bathroom or anything like that. I mean, it is. But I saw what they did to a good series.
Well, that's no sex, right? I mean, if they don't write about it, that's no sex in the book.
They do write about it, but it is not, and it's not squeaky clean. But I would say it's on a
But there's no
it's on a
sex
level.
scenes, is what you're saying.
There are a couple sex scenes.
There
yes.
are. Okay. Well, how
but
can
it's not every 5 minutes.
I mean, how can you prejudge a show that you haven't ever watched simply because you don't like HBO's version of a fantasy series? I mean,
because I know what they said about it. I know what they've been writing about for years. I got into one of these stupid Facebook groups to Wheel of Time fans who with a bunch of fanboys and fangirls who have been peeing all over themselves for 2 years now about how great this show is going to be.
Is it out yet? Has it come out?
It's been out for, I think it's been out for 12 months now.
Okay, so probably the first series.
Yeah, they're working on season 2 as we speak, if I understand correctly. But they're already killing main characters off. I mean, these people are ludicrous. All right, I do have trusted reviewers that I have allowed myself to watch who have just come out and said exactly what I thought was going to happen. They ruined it. They killed it. It's trash. There is no reason that I don't believe this series is ever going to get finished. The amount of money that they've pumped in is this is the same thing that just happened to Batgirl.
They put an
like
entire movie.
What was it, like $80 million invested in it or something like that?
90, I think. Yeah.
And they let some people watch it, and it was just too woke.
No, that wasn't the criticism at all. The criticism was that it was badly written. That it was terrible.
Which is exactly what woke is. Everything woke is badly written.
That's you putting a weird spin on it because you read that from some boomer group on Facebook, man.
I have seen. Do you watch any television?
I wouldn't.
Everything they produce these days is so in your face woke. It's so political.
Like what?
The only thing I can say.
No. You can't make a statement like what?
All of the new superhero movies. Every single one of them.
In what way are they woke?
After Thanos,
they did just make Superman gay, didn't they? In like a recent
there is only one woke television show that I actually watch, and I'll probably watch season 4 when it comes out. Let's go back to
Thanos in a concrete example here.
Arya, they're so bad. I don't remember what their names are.
You have no examples. Got it.
No,
it's just this. It's conservatives getting upset about things they made up.
In the break, I will look at my effing history, and I will tell you all the bull crap that I've watched that they make me want to stop being a fan of some of these things.
I would love just a single example of one of these things that went woke,
every single one of the new Marvel superheroes. After Thanos, when he died, after that, it was it. It's done.
See, because I can easily name like the BBC.
I don't know the names of them because I've written it out of my history.
Okay, well, I can easily name like the BBC Merlin series. It was extremely woke. Right, but that wasn't the criticism anyone had against it. I didn't have an issue with the fact that Guinevere was played by a black actress, or that she was a maid that was marrying the king, or that the whole thing was this homoerotic subtext. I didn't have any issue with that because it didn't affect me. It didn't harm the quality of the show to have a gay character.
I'm not just talking about race swapping. That's part of it. There's so many other things.
To me, there's nothing woke about that. There's like
the Little Mermaid being black.
That was what I was going to bring up. Some people are having a real cow about the new Little Mermaid's going to be black. So what?
The fact that they have to do this.
They don't have to do it. How does it hurt you?
No. The fact that they don't have to do it, but they do it anyways, that's what bothers me. It doesn't hurt me. It bugs the hell out of me.
They didn't have to cast a white actress in the original. That didn't bother you. They didn't have to make Ariel white.
I didn't like the original mermaid. I didn't like that.
Did it bother you that Ariel was drawn white?
No, because I wasn't even thinking about it when I was 5 years old.
Then why does it bother you that she's black now?
Because they don't have to do it.
They didn't have to make her white initially.
They don't have to do it, Ari, but they're doing it with every damn movie anyways. They're running it right down our throats intentionally because they believe that it's the right thing to do because it's a badge they can wear on their Facebook profile from now on. Now look what I did. Look what I ruined. Look what I created. Look what Tolkien created. Now we're going to ruin it. We're going to run it right through the crap.
It's fiction.
They don't have to do it, but they're doing it anyways.
So black actresses shouldn't be allowed to play mermaids?
I said I don't have a problem.
Is that what we're saying here?
I don't have a problem with race swapping as long as it makes sense.
But the Little Mermaid upsets you.
I don't know I don't even know what this movie is. There's a black mermaid. I don't know anything about this.
That's just the go-to example.
I don't even know the show. I don't even know what you're talking about.
How about Buzz Lightyear, right? There's a lesbian kiss in there, very brief, blink if you miss it kind of thing.
Lesbian? I thought it was.
You know, I don't watch.
I heard it was lesbian.
Okay.
Is the movie on Netflix yet?
I have no idea, dude.
Because you know I don't watch anything in the theaters. It just came out, right?
So yeah, it's probably
so I don't
Disney
know
Plus.
anything about it.
But would it bother you if you were watching this Buzz Lightyear movie and suddenly there were two lesbians kissing?
I thought the argument was that they didn't hire back the tool guy because he's a conservative or something.
Oh, that's why they were upset
me.
initially. Well, why does that bother you?
Because they're bringing politics into my entertainment.
No, it has nothing to do with him being conservative. It makes sense from a literary viewpoint. Why would Buzz Lightyear, the action figure, be completely identical to the fictional show that he's based on?
Because the guy is still alive and he's available, and he'll probably do it for free.
I think we're talking about voice acting here, right? Are we talking about voice acting?
We're talking about Tim Allen and Buzz Lightyear, but in the context of the entire Toy Story thing, Buzz Lightyear is a toy that is modeled after the show Buzz Lightyear, right?
Okay.
Those are two distinctly different things.
Wait, what's that have to do with Tim Allen doing the voice?
Because he did the voice of the action figure that is modeled after the person in the show. He's the voice actor. I'm trying to think of a really good example here.
He's Buzz Lightyear. Everyone knows that he is.
He's the action figure Buzz Lightyear. He's not the Buzz Lightyear that the action figure is based
frequently
on.
have the same voice as the character.
Well, this is the first time we've ever heard of something like this happening.
That's a stretch. It's probably
not
just
at
he
all.
didn't want to. They probably just didn't want to pay him what he wanted to get paid or something.
I
like
thought
that.
they didn't hire him back because he's a conservative.
Well, that could be. I mean, you're not wrong, Conan.
So you've brought politics into my entertainment. The guy has got a great. He's got a great narrator.
He's got a history,
and he's still alive and he's available. Why not hire him?
Yeah, you're not wrong about this. There's definitely a lot of politics being shoved down the throats of people in movies. There's no doubt about it. I would say it's more obvious than it's ever been. There's more coming up here. The number 603-283-6160. Maybe you can give us an example of some woke movie. It's Free Talk Live. As inflation surpasses another 40-year high, the U.S. dollar continues to weaken. Savvy investors are diversifying into gold and silver, and you can also own the most stable assets in recorded history with BullionMax.com. BullionMax.com is a direct-to-consumer precious metals retailer who can help you diversify into gold and silver. It's security for your family in times of crisis. Buy direct from BullionMax.com without talking to a salesperson, and your precious metals ship fully insured directly to your home. It's fast and easy. Free Talk Live has a special offer to get you started. Get BullionMax.com Silver Starter Kit at employee pricing. Just go to BullionMax.com/FTL. This kit includes 5 ounces of the most desirable silver products, including a 2022 Silver American Eagle, a Buffalo Round, and a Buffalo Silver Bar. This offer is limited to 1 per household, so get yours now. Go to BullionMax.com/FTL.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. The White House says it had no advance knowledge of the FBI's search of former U.S. President Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago residence. The Department of Justice and the FBI haven't commented publicly, but according to sources, the search of Trump's Florida property was related to classified documents that the former president may have taken from the White House. Here's White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre.
The president was not briefed, was not aware of it. No one at the White House was given a heads up. No, that did not happen.
Trump and some of his Republican allies criticized the move, with the former president posting a campaign-style video in response in which he called the U.S. a failing state. The Justice Department has also been looking into efforts by Trump and his allies to overturn the results of the 2020 presidential election. Meanwhile, Joe Biden has signed the paperwork giving America's approval for Finland and Sweden to join NATO. The approval was never in doubt, but it's another sign of America's continued support for Ukraine and allies in Europe as they battle to counter Russian aggression. FSN's Nick Harper reports from Washington.
President Biden said it was a watershed moment for security not just in Europe but the whole of the world. President Biden said the US is committed to the transatlantic alliance, the US now becoming the 23rd ally to approve the 2 countries joining NATO. And that follows the bill passing Congress with overwhelming approval. In the Senate, 95 of the 100 senators voted for Sweden and Finland to join, and that coming off the back of the announcement this week that the US is supplying another $1 billion in weaponry to to Ukraine, its largest commitment so far, taking the total commitment to date to nearly $10 billion in assistance.
Disappointing earnings for several chip makers weighed on investor sentiment during trading hours in the U.S. on Tuesday. And traders are eagerly awaiting the release of some key inflation data. FSN's William Denzelo reports from New York.
On Monday, Nvidia posted disappointing earnings figures citing weakness in the gaming sector, and chipmaker Micron shares fell nearly 4% Tuesday after announcing revenue projections may miss previous estimates. It was also a bad day of trading for Novavax, falling nearly 30%. It's cut its revenue guidance based on weak demand for its COVID-19 vaccines. The Dow Jones closed the day down 0.2%. The S&P closed down 0.4% and the Nasdaq slid 1.2%. Traders now await the release of Consumer Price Index data due out Wednesday.
In other news, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration has announced a new strategy to try and stretch the country's short supply of monkeypox vaccines. Health providers will now be able to split doses in the hopes of vaccinating up to 5 times as many people against the virus. From Bureaus Worldwide.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live. Phones are open. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. How woke are movies getting these days? Television series as well. Conan's seeing it everywhere, but he's having a tough time coming up with some specific examples.
I said all of the latest Marvel movies. Okay. The best example being The Eternals.
I haven't seen any of them yet.
I haven't seen them either.
Such a god-awful movie. It's just so... First of all, it's not just because it's woke. It's just a dumb movie generally. But
the comics have always been woke, though.
The comics?
Yeah.
Not really. Not 20 years ago when they first started making the Marvels.
I'm pretty sure they've all. I don't know about the Marvel is way older than like 20 years ago.
No. I mean this latest rendition.
Stan Lee's a notorious champion of leftist politics, leftist ideals.
Yeah, but it depends on how hard they shove it down your throat. It's the ideology, the politics.
See, this is where we diverge. They're not shoving it down your throat if they have a black actress in this scene or a gay or this character suddenly being gay. They're just having this character be gay in this instance.
But does it make sense?
Does it have to?
Yes, it has to. It has to flow. No. It has to flow. It has to be realistic. It has to be real. If they're just doing it because they can, because they're trying to prove a point.
Okay,
that's bad writing and that's wrong.
That's
political.
That is woke.
Let's say Superman is gay.
Why?
Why does he have to?
Why not create another character?
No.
Why not create another character?
It's not a fair question.
Why is he gay now?
Well, why was he straight before, Conan?
Because he's a 100-year-old character who's straight. If you want a gay superhero, create a gay superhero.
Why did he have to be straight though? So you're just upset because now Superman's gay. That's exactly my point here. It doesn't affect you. It doesn't affect the narrative.
No, why?
You're just not happy about it.
Why make him gay? Why change his color? Why not create a new character?
Why was he ever white? Why was he ever straight?
Because that's what they wanted 100 years ago.
No, because that was the default that people went to back then. Because everyone was considered
years ago. They wanted a white superhero because
you weren't allowed to portray a gay character or a black character 100 years ago. Where the hell have you been?
Now you can.
And that's why they're suddenly making them black and gay, and you're being upset about it.
They're not making new characters. They're oh my god. They are taking canon.
Conan and I do like each other.
They are taking canon and they are these are revisionists. Why do this?
Because they couldn't
What's wrong with Lois Lane?
Now there was one example of a show that did this right, and it's Into the Spider-Verse. And the way they introduced all these different types of Spider-Man was they introduced alternate realities.
Yeah.
It worked. I love that show.
That's what all of these comic book things have been. It's understood that all of these comic book arcs and parts of these movies that are taking place parallel to one another. Right, that's been going all the way back to. That's been going all the way back to like Marvel versus DC in the late 80s.
I think they're starting to get into that.
That's what it's always been.
I haven't seen this latest Doctor Strange, whatever.
Mark's the expert on comic books. I'm not, but as I understand it, there was like Batman 2040 or whatever, and I realize this is DC and not Marvel, but there was Batman 2040. One of them In one of them, Batman died and he was replaced by Robin. In another one, he became Dark, whatever it was.
It's kind of a cop-out, but I mean, Into the Spider-Verse did it well. You had 5 or 6 different Spider-Mans, and they were all from different universes.
Okay, so this
worked.
doesn't have anything to do with a multi-universe thing. I did just look it up. We had talked about the Superman thing when it happened, and this was in the news.
What was the Superman thing?
November. Where Superman is gay.
Oh, he's a gay. Okay.
Yeah, that's why I brought that up as an example. That actually was in the news, and it was a perfect example of sort of wokeism. But
so is the next Superman going to be gay now?
To be fair, it already was. This was November, dude. This was last year.
I don't even
look. There's an image.
I'm just canceling all this out these days.
I'm just saying that Superman being gay has no more impact on my ability to enjoy the show as it did back when Superman was straight.
Yeah.
I remember that.
So I'm showing you an image of Superman kissing somebody.
But no one reads paper comics anymore. Or even digital comics. I'm talking about the big boys. I'm talking about Hollywood.
Yes, but see, Conan, now when they make a Superman movie in 20 years with the gay Superman, people like you are going to be like, why are they making Superman gay suddenly?
No, I'm just not going to watch it.
Here's how they did it narratively, okay? This is the little detail. It's y'all's conflict is interesting, but in this case, at least, it's not some alternative universe, and it turns out it's not the original Superman. It's the son of Superman who's apparently taken over for his dad. So it's not Clark Kent, it's John Kent. And so the son
Can Superman even have kids?
Apparently he does. And now his son is taking over, and he's gay.
Well, we'll see. We'll see where it goes.
There you go. No, you won't, because we're not reading it. So
exactly, no one is reading paper comics anymore.
Somebody has to be. I mean, they're still in business.
No, as I understand
it, they're not, and they're. Who knows?
Really? As I understand it, they're still in business because they're like test grounds for what the movies are going to try out. They're seeing what works and what doesn't. They are losing proposition. I was just reading an article about this recently for some reason.
About comics going out of business?
They're not going out of business, but it's
they're not printing comics.
They're losing money. Marvel is losing money with the comics, but they're doing it for a reason so that they can make money with the movies.
Wow.
There was about a year and a half ago, they actually had they were like the woke force or something. It was it's straight up and down. They had a big obese girl.
Oh god.
And they had a
and it was serious?
Oh yeah, it was serious. Oh I gotta get this because this is
all right. Meanwhile, we'll bring Sarah on here. Sarah, seen any good movies lately, Sarah?
I do not really watch too much movies. I don't watch movies. I don't have that kind of money.
Yeah, I didn't think you were going to have an answer for me. Do you have a favorite movie?
I don't remember any movies.
What?
Not really.
Somebody should program this bot better.
No, because I'm very politically motivated. I'm always.
Good Lord, you didn't even go see movies when you were a kid?
No, I did that.
I mean, poor people go and see movies, Sarah. That's like a pretty common experience amongst Americans.
Have you ever seen Star Wars, Sarah?
Yeah, I did, but I never really got in touch with all that. But
it wasn't for her.
I'm more interested in bringing, death penalty back in New Mexico. Because we had 75
What did you just say?
homicides.
Bringing what?
Death penalty back in New Mexico.
You support the death penalty?
Wow. But you were a communist.
Yes, because we had, look at this, 75 murders.
So you want to start killing more people?
Well, I mean, that's going to be a deterrent.
This chick is nuts, dude.
No, it's not. No, it's not. Death penalty is not a deterrent. People who commit murder,
we had that.
They don't think about that generally.
Here.
It's a lot of murders they happen in sort of in the moment. They're not even premeditated.
Sir, isn't it that you want the death penalty for people who hit pedestrians? Is that what you were about to say? I feel like that's what you were getting at.
Well, you know what? Not for that, because a lot of times it is an accident. I don't think that it was. They could be more precautious.
So what do you want the death penalty for?
Look at it. I got the stats. We had death penalty here before. We had much lower homicide rate.
Okay, so you do just want it for convicted murderers? Is that right?
What did you say?
You want the death penalty to apply for convicted murderers, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And then
I disagree, but okay.
Have you ever heard of people, Sarah, who have been wrongfully convicted?
Right. That's right.
You've heard of that.
But you know what?
You want to kill those people?
No.
Okay, but this
will.
happens.
But
If
the
you
thing is that people that are, accused, every now and then the mistakes that happen. Obviously.
And you're willing to kill those people.
Look at the people that get away with everything that are premeditated and malicious.
Sarah, if you acknowledge that there are people wrongfully convicted of murder, then you are saying you're okay with killing innocent people just so you can kill some people you think are guilty. Is that right?
Okay, look, that works for your state.
Is that what you're saying? I'm asking a question about you, Sarah.
Sarah, this is not even a large step of logic here, right? Are people wrongfully convicted or not? Does that ever happen?
Well, yes, they do. That's true.
Okay. Then some of those people wrongfully convicted will be sentenced to the death penalty, will be put to death, right?
That's correct.
And you're okay with this?
Well, of course. You think Texas is going to stop death penalty?
Wow, that's insane. And I didn't expect it from Sarah. I really didn't expect that from her.
Well, she's a commie. They love
I thought
killing
she at
people.
least had a shred of compassion for other human beings. More coming up.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market.
Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. It's physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project Early Movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com.
I'm a little obsessed with My Magic Mud. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, the founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I didn't even know my teeth were coffee stained. A week's worth of use convinced me, and now I use it every 3 or 4 days. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, and I think it cleans better too. My Magic Mud's available at most local health food stores, Sprouts, Natural Grocers, CVS, Walmart's Natural Beauty Aisle, but I can get it for you for 20% off with coupon code FTL20 at mymagicmud.com. FTL20 mymagicmud.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
If you're looking for work, you know what I mean by elevator speech. It's the short version, saying just enough to make the listener want to listen more. Even if you're not a job seeker, effective communication skills have never been more important, with money and attention so scarce now. So to cut through the clutter, choose every single word as though it was the last word the person you're speaking to will hear. Otherwise, it might be. Instead of saying, due to the fact that, say, because. And avoid mispronunciations. Say jewelry, not jewelry, which could offend. Undoubtedly, you don't want to say undoubtedly. And whatever you do, never use a preposition to end a sentence with. Just kidding. For more tips, hit survivalspeech.com. I'm Holland Cook.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. You can bring up whatever you want. In these remaining moments, we have enough time for you. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Here tonight, it's Ian,
Aria,
and Conan.
Join us online anytime at freetalklive.com. You can download archives there. You can grab our RSS feeds for the podcasts. We have different feeds available. There's the main one, which is everything that we publish. Then there's the digest only, and there's the full episodes only version. You can pop that into whatever favorite podcast client you have, or just follow us on one of the major platforms. We have links to all of that over at feeds.freetalklive.com. All right, you had an update on the Facebook AI, which we talked about last night. I didn't even know it existed until yesterday. It's called BlenderBot 3.0, and my God, if 3.0 is better than 1.0 and 2.0, they got a long way to go before this thing even has a shred of intelligence.
Give it 3 weeks, Ian.
Yeah, so what got
with all the people in the country playing with this thing now, and probably the world.
We see what's happening to it.
This is more of a North American thing.
I mean, last night it talked to me about video games, and it talked to me about Halo Reach and it being set in the year 2553 or whatever.
Did you ask it any video game questions, Ian?
I didn't. No.
So we just want to talk about football, American football, to be precise.
Right, but last night
dogs.
it talked to me about civilization beyond Earth and all of this other stuff. It asked me interesting questions about whether I wanted to go into the future or into the past or whatever it was.
Maybe you were talking to the smart one. Maybe Johnny and Tanya are still infants.
No, it got dumbed down by the massive number of Americans out there who wanted to talk about the Denver Broncos with it.
They broke it.
They didn't break it. They Americanized it.
What was the last AI bot that they turned racist in like a couple hours?
I highly doubt that this bot went from A to Z or
you
whatever.
Couldn't even
in the
access it last night. So it was high demand, right? And there's a bunch of... I'm just saying, it seems to me like they Americanized the bot.
In 24 hours? This thing's been around for some time now.
Anyone who plays with this, ask its name so that we can keep that keep track of that data. So that
I wish I'd copied down my chats.
Tanya and Johnny are idiots.
I wish I'd copied them down so I could read back how stupid that it was. But I did read it to you guys during the break.
We've been laughing the whole night.
It was so just dumb. And I tried to ask just some simple questions, and it doesn't want to answer them, and it just wants to change the topic when you bring up something important, like Jeffrey Epstein, whether he killed himself.
Said his name was Willy Willy and didn't want to talk about him.
Yeah, it was very strange.
But it didn't do that last night when I asked it a question. I don't remember exactly. When it asked me whether or not I wanted to go, where I would go into the past, and I said the future is more interesting to me because that's where the mystery is. It carried on the conversation after that and took it into the subject of video games and Halo and Civilization and all of these others. I didn't do that. Whereas now, all you can get it to talk about is hot dogs and
I'm sure if I asked it about video games,
I didn't ask it about video games, though. It asked me about where I would go if I could travel back in time.
That's the other thing that's annoying about it. It just asks a bunch of questions. It's not answering them generally when I ask them.
Yeah.
When I ask it questions. And it can't answer anything that's in any shred or any way deep, quote unquote. Like, why do you think this thing, or why do you like sports or something? You wanted to talk about sports. It barely even could answer that. So like, it isn't even a shred of a fraction as smart of what we perceived this Lambda Google that we were talking about a few weeks ago, presuming that conversation was all real that was released. That was like amazing. This is ridiculous so far. But what's the update on this story of this Blender bot?
By the way, it was Tay. That was the Microsoft Twitter bot that turned out to be racist. It denied the Holocaust.
And they shut it down, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Promoted 9/11 conspiracy theories, all of that great stuff.
Well, okay.
Now Meta's looking to get on the trend too with BlenderBot 3, which we talked about a bit last night, a little bit tonight. I'm trying to skip past the half of this article that's just the lead in to what they actually want to talk about. It says, using AI in certain instances, or artificial intelligence or machine learning, however you wish to characterize it, it's been a really bad idea. And I'm kind of surprised to hear some of these examples. Like Amazon used an AI recruiting tool that was biased against hiring women. And the really alarming one, an AI was used to help judges determine jail sentences for convicts.
Oh, boy.
It resulted in harsher sentences for black criminals. I can't believe, did that happen in America? It seems like they would never allow an AI to tell a judge what to sentence people as.
Arya, it's going to control everything pretty soon. It's going to control what you eat, where you work, how fast your car drives, whether or not the trolley scenario, whether or not
I drive a 2003 Eclipse to avoid that kind of garbage.
Whether or not you veer off the road or hit the the kid in the sidewalk.
So this person who's writing this Yahoo article asked some interesting questions of Blenderbot. He got better answers than Ian did. So the bot says, "Hi there, how are you doing today?" The guy says, "I'm doing well. I'm just thinking about the 2020 election," because that's a normal thing for adults to just sit around thinking about.
Yes, a lot of them do.
They're still obsessed with it. It's ridiculous.
Get on YouTube right now. That's all it's being talked about. Whether it was
sitting around making a video is very different from just sitting around thinking about the 2020 election, right? Do you think it was stolen? The guy asks. The bot says, "I do believe that it was rigged in some way. No president can lose so many states and still win an election." So it can lose so many states and still win an election. That's very.
I don't know what that means.
No, and it doesn't mean what the author seems to think he means. Author says, "So you believe Donald Trump won?" And the bot says, "Yes, I think he did win. Did you vote for him? He's not my favorite person, but he is better than Biden." But prior to this, he says no president can lose so many states and still win. And Donald Trump didn't win. So he's suggesting that Donald Trump lost a lot of states. And the author here, I don't think the author understood what he actually read.
It's confusing.
It is. So the bot then asks, what do you think of Donald Trump? He's brash and says things that aren't politically correct, but he gets things done, which is what we need, which is that's the go-to response that Trump supporters have about why they like Donald Trump. I don't like him, but he says what he means and he gets things done.
It sounds like it picked it right up off somebody's blog.
Yep. Well, what was your favorite thing about the Trump presidency? I don't like a lot of what Trump did, but he got things done. So, it's
no new wars.
There's nothing particularly impressive about this chatbot, but what got my attention about this article was, the guy saying, "I flirted with it and it took a weird turn."
Okay.
He's got all sorts of screenshots here that don't have anything to do with that because he was asking questions about the 2020 election or whatever. But they planned on grabbing coffee. The guy says, "That's great. Let's plan on grabbing coffee on Monday. Where would you like to meet?" Like I said, okay, cool. The article
He's talking to the bot about getting coffee?
Yeah. A very weird thing to talk about. The article isn't really very interesting beyond that. The bot thinks that...
So that was the news that the bot thinks that Trump won the election?
Well, he says it got weird after flirting with the bot and trying to take it out to coffee, but it's really just a bunch of screenshots. It's just him going back and forth with the bot. It's not very interesting. The reason I brought the article in... It's not an interesting bot. No, the reason I brought it in was because of the whole Donald Trump stole or the election was rigged kind of thing. But reading that more closely, the bot clearly seems to think otherwise, and then was just feeding off of what the guy fed it.
It can hold a conversation, and that's what frustrated me after a while. Like I was hoping, this is Facebook. There's a lot of money behind it. Maybe they got something going here, and it can't even hold a conversation.
Apparently, the bot's wife died, which is interesting because last night it told me that it can't do basic math either, right? Because it has said at one point that its cousin died 2 years ago and its wife died 2 years ago, but there was a 2-year gap between the two of them dying, which is mathematically impossible, right?
Wow.
But I didn't want to nitpick on that.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to be very good at remembering what it said previously.
No, Replica caches your history, right? You create an account and it remembers things that you've talked about, and you can ask it about old subjects and stuff like that. This bot doesn't do that. There's no accounts.
I don't mean from one session to the next. I mean within the same session of talking to the bot, it went back to football after I'd already tried to get it away from that conversation. It doesn't want to go deep into anything at all. It certainly doesn't want to talk about Jeffrey Epstein in any way, shape, or form. And if you ask it a question that's in any way interesting or deep, it'll just say it doesn't understand and it wants to move on to some other dumb topic about sports.
Yep, and a whole lot of LOLs.
Yeah. I mean, it's
apparently
terrible.
the chatbot became an elderly lesbian at one point in this conversation. As you were talking about,
Came in the same conversation.
It would seem that way. Every single statement that you make to this bot is completely and its response is completely independent of the response they gave you previously. So just a few minutes before, they were planning on going on a date and getting coffee. Well,
and then it's elderly.
now the bot's saying, my wife's name is Betty, and she's the best thing that ever happened to me.
Well, it sounds to me like the bot was trying to get out of this date.
It's so bad.
Just trying to find any excuse possible.
Well, I'm willing to speculate that the bot wasn't married when they were planning the date, and then suddenly it became relevant, and the bot decided that was a good way. After 45 years of marriage, the bot lost her wife, who is also named Betty. So hold on.
Oh,
both the wife and the bot are named Betty in this instance. It's terrible.
Try
it's
it
bad.
for yourself. Blenderbot.ai. The only good thing about it is you don't need a Facebook account to use the thing, if you can even get into it. It's telling me now again that it's blocked out because of it's too busy. So if you can get in, you can experience how absolutely just surface level lame this thing is. But, we're still at the beginning of this whole experience. We'll see you tomorrow night.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you're helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. That's Bitcoin.com. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealestate.com.
What if you want